We're recording, just so everybody knows, we that's your packet right there. We do have 9 board members present, and we have 4 boards. We're only missing, we're missing 1 board, so a good turnout. We've got from West River voting Al, Joe, Drew, and Emily. Do we know if the other 2 are coming? Has anybody heard anything? Okay, and then from River Valleys, we've got Kate on TV and Dwight and I. And for Marlboro, we have Dan. Do you know is Rachel gonna join us?
She is not, no.
Okay, so, and in Stratton, we have Alyssa. And then we have some people joining us. Bob will let me know who, because I can't see that far.
There's 2 staff members.
Okay, so we call the meeting to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. I got members of the public, and I'm told that we have a couple public or a couple staff members. Carrie, do you have any comments, anything you'd like to say before we start? Carrie Toll. Carrie Toll? Is that Brownie's relation?
Daughter.
Oh, I love Brownie. Okay, going once, going twice. Terry Davison Berger, any comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you being here. I just think members of the public we covered, so we're gonna move on to new business, which is budget for FY '27. It's hard to believe for new year. So just before we start, the budget is, if for anybody in TV land, the budget is, there's a link to the budget on the agenda. We're not gonna put it up on the TV because it's hard to see and you can't really scroll through it. It's just whoever is sharing it can scroll through it. But there is a really nice packet as usual that was put together by central office and Heidi and Bob. And I'd like to just take 2 minutes before we start going over this. It's budgeting is never fun, it's never easy, and it's always confusing. So we're gonna try to do it to make it as easy for people to get through it, to understand it as we can. So what we're gonna do is, there's usually a summary, executive summary, which is on page 2 and 3 of your budget and 4. And what happened is, and I'd just like to kind of preface this with, there is a mistake on the first page. There's not 960 students, 94 of them ran away, so we only got 866 students currently. The 960s left from last year, but that is pretty telling that between all our communities, we have 100 less students or 90.
Really?
What?
We lost 100 students in 1 year?
96.
But some of them are homeschooled because we don't count the homeschool kids, and some of them we don't know where they are, so, but otherwise.
So that, that's almost a
10% reduction, that's crazy. I said 10%, that's a lot.
It's pretty severe, but it's what a lot of our districts are seeing. I know Marlboro's seeing a big drop. We're seeing a drop in River Valleys, I guess West River. I don't know what Stratton and Windham are looking like, but yeah, Drew, it's kind of scary, especially if they're going to go to a per pupil based model for reimbursement or for finances. So, but we also, for years, we had 4 budgets, and a long time ago, it was before, I think, Joe and Al were in Townsend on the board. We used to do a fee-for-service budget. It was something that I always thought that Windham Central was one of, like, heads and shoulders above. So our smaller schools, instead of, Townsend and Jamaica and Brookline trying to hire a gym teacher, the district would hire a gym teacher and we would all be charged for it. We called it agency fund budget, then it became fee-for-service budget. But since we've, West River's combined into a pretty large district, and the other districts, West River and Marlboro have had pretty good success in working to get people. It became less and less people in that budget. And we also had an early ed budget, and we used to keep our special budget, or the MTSS budget. We had a lot of stuff moved over there because it used to be a reimbursement model. And we started that in Dover 25 years ago, like we were putting some of our advertising money into the special ed section of the budget, and we were putting a lot of our administrative costs and materials in there that, because we got reimbursed for it, and it was a reimbursement based on your budget, not so much on your expenditures. But that's now changed with another act, and I'm not gonna remember all the acts, but I'm sure a lot of you know. So a lot of the budgeting has changed, and in the fee for service budget or the agency fund budget, Townsend had asked, because they had a couple years where they had some issues with whether or not their budget was gonna pass. We actually would not vote the agency fund fee budget or the fee for service budget until after town meeting, so it gave the boards the ability, if they did get less money at town meeting, that they could then adjust their budget and move to where they wanted, so that it wasn't a set number. So we have, at the executive committee meeting, which we hold monthly with Bob, and Heidi came to that, it was suggested that maybe we go to 1 or 2 budgets, and I think, Drew, you had a conversation with Bob either before or after that meeting, because I know you weren't at the meeting, but the board agreed, the executive committee agreed to present to you folks this year 2 budgets. One will be the MTSS, and the other will be the general fund budget, which is gonna incorporate parts of the old superintendent's budget and some of the stuff from the MTSS. And the early childhood is gonna move into the MTSS budget. So we're only gonna look at 2 budgets this year, and we are gonna ask you to vote eventually for 2 budgets. I don't know if we'll do that tonight, or we may put that off down the road. So is there any questions or comments on the major changes before we get into kind of the nitty gritty? And if you're on TV land, can just make sure you raise your hand, or you unmute yourself and blurt out. You guys good, Melissa and Kate? Okay, everybody in here good with that until we get into specifics? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask Heidi and Bob to present the budgets, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the general fund budget, and we're gonna start with expenses, because that's what we really get to vote on. We vote on expenses, and then what it's gonna cost, and the income is based on the expenses. So I'd ask that we hold questions until they do their presentation. Let's just work on the one budget at a time, so we're not jumping around. And then I'd also ask that you be recognized, and you'll have the floor until you get to ask your questions and your follow-up. It's not gonna be a back and forth, but you get to ask your questions, and then we'll move on. And we'll let you do one question or one round of questions, and then we'll move on to somebody else, and then we'll go around a second time if there's additional questions that come up. Is everybody good with that? You guys good? Everybody in here good? Cool. So let's if you go into your packet for the budgeting stuff, if you go to page 2 and 3 and 4 are your summaries. So we'll start with the executive summary. Bob, do you want to sum that up? And then we'll go into the general fund narrative.
Yep.
We'll let Heidi take that.
Absolutely. So Rich spoke a little bit about the early part of this, the 4 budgets going to 2. Because that staffing, there was less people shared, and because of the reimbursement model, there didn't seem to be as much of a reason to do that. So in cleaning up this, merging these into 2 budgets, we took the opportunity to really thoroughly clean up where people were. Because we recognized there used to be a whole spreadsheet that had it showed where all the people were parted out with different budgets and the grants and everything else. And as grants changed and the funding changed, it made it look like people were shuffling around, which they were. And so in trying to be more clear with less federal grants, you'll find that the entire business office, save 1 position, is in the general fund budget. And you'll find that instead of having part of different things, it's all kind of been blended in. And then myself and Jen, and Greg, and Nicole, executive assistant, and Heidi in her office are all gonna be in there. The other directors, for curriculum, for SEL, for special education, and the 1 business person who's in MTSS will be in MTSS, and that's because she's tied to those people and the grants. That will be the one exception. So we're hoping that will help clarify moving forward, but it will lead to some kind of jumbling this year, but hopefully for the last time. So that was sort of the pitch there, and Rich did a nice job of explaining sort of the reason for that. So that's the sort of executive summary of why we ended up with 2. As Rich mentioned, we're gonna talk about, so the page 3, I'll have Heidi walk through this with the general fund budget narrative. Page 4 we'll come back to when we talk about the MTSS budget. We're gonna skip that for now. We'll just go through what they are back to back on pages, so, sorry. We'll come back to that, but I'll let Heidi talk about a little bit about the general fund
Hang
narrative.
on a second.
Sure.
Are you all set?
I'm all set, yeah.
Okay, so is everybody accepting and good with this? Because it was an executive committee decision, but is there anybody that has a problem with the 2 budgets and the way they're split now? Is everybody good with that? Everybody in TV land okay with that? Yep, go ahead.
My only question is, just to make sure we get a proper reimbursement. Now, I assume that's all been thought through, but, that was one of the advantages of the other budget. It was clear what we were getting reimbursement for, so I just wanna
Right.
make sure that
Well, so special ed doesn't have reimbursement anymore, it's all the block grant now, so it's just, here's your chunk of money, apply it, you know.
Fee for service side.
Oh, you're talking about fee for service?
Well, no, mostly the
Oh,
ones that we would
sorry.
have gotten reimbursed.
The special ed
for.
side,
If
yeah.
it's just a block grant, then,
Yep, yeah, that's what's changed with the 173 back in,
That was a
2017,
committee
18, whatever
Dan
that was.
served on with us. I think Joe was there down in New Fane.
Yeah.
You had a parent that came and, Drew, you good? Al?
Thank you.
Yes, okay, good, so got through, I'm glad we don't have to go back and make 4 budgets again. Okay, so you're gonna do.
no one's more happy than
Yeah.
Heidi.
Yeah, I'm sure. So Heidi, you gonna jump in and talk to us about the
We'll start
general
with
fund?
page 3. I really tried to itemize the, kind of the round numbers you're gonna see that kind of move between budgets. It's definitely confusing because of where it was, and hopefully next year it'll be more apples to apples, but I just wanna say, going into it, the bottom line of each of the budgets are a combination of last year. The bottom line is the 2 budgets that are feeding into this, so you can look at the bottom line on each of the 2 budgets, and it's representative of everything we looked at last year, so just be aware that that's all there. In working with the central office, Bob, Jen, Chris, we have been able to, between this year and what we're moving into next year, reduced a few things, and so that's at the top of page 3. We have, first of all, removed the 3 fee-for-service staff that are gonna be paid out of specific school budgets. So the ELL teacher was 0.2 in the fee-for-service. The 1.0 physical education teacher that went to 2 different school districts is now gonna be paid out of those school districts. And there was a special ed guidance position that was part-time, and we billed back for half-time because that individual worked for a school district and did some special ed work. So that's coming directly out of individual school budget. There's a reduction of a half-time business office position that we had lost last year and have taken out for this coming fiscal year. For the increases you're gonna see, and part of these increases are the movement, there is the executive committee agreed to a 5% increase of salaries this year after the 3% increase last year. The health insurance was determined to be a 7.4%, so I give you the numbers, round numbers of what that increases are for the general fund budget. There is 1.25 FTE of business office personnel that had been between grants in the MTSS budget, and so that, bringing that back in, along with health insurance and all the benefits, adds in $151,000 to the general fund budget. The executive director of teaching and learning was increased from 2.2 in this budget to 1.0, and that's an increase of salary and benefits of $144,000.
That had previously been in the MTSS budget.
Yes, and partially grant funded. Increased the director of operations from 0.65 to 1.0. Salary and benefits are increasing in this budget for $57,000. Unemployment compensation, I did not catch this for this current year. It's not, my finance system is not calculating it correctly, so it's underfunded in the current budget. So you will see those lines with huge increases because I've now corrected going forward, so the increases are large compared to what they were this year. So that's another 14,000. In the technology part of the general fund budget, you're gonna see a $20,000 request because Matt Martin has mentioned and said that it's long overdue that we need to increase the SU's internet services, and there's E-rate funds out there to the tune of about 90,000 for our whole SU, but we have to fund 20% of that in order to get the funds, so we've added that in, so that's his project hopefully for next year. And then rent has usually been divided between the two budgets, MTSS and the general fund, because again, could be used for reimbursement. So you will see that completely in the general fund budget, and so instead of it being 20,000 in each, it's 40,000. There was a 5% increase of the rent for fiscal year 27 from fiscal year 26. So overall, there is some reduction of 264,000, but there is additions, of which 396,000 is new money of the 768 additions. That is not mentioned here. I mentioned the net result being 504,000, but I wanted to point out that 396 is funds that were not in fiscal year 26 in any budget.
And that's the salary benefit increases, typically.
Typically, yes,
Okay.
the rent and stuff like that, but
The
yes,
rent.
the unemployment. So the net difference you're seeing from last year to this year in this budget is 308,000. So if you wanna take a look at the individual expenditure budget that comes next, starting on page 5. I filled in FTEs on the side so you can get a sense of the funding and what it's paying for. Obviously, with the addition of moving some people in, the benefits are gonna be higher. But that has to do with the movement of those positions. There are, for instance, travel expenses, conference expenses, dues and fees that went with individuals that were paid out of grants or MTSS in the past. So those are up higher than would normally be. The business off. Yeah, so this is still on page 5. You can see the fiscal services. There's a total of 6 employees in the business office handling your payroll, your accounts payable, your my position along with my assistant business manager and the purchasing. Yeah, so that is pretty much what you'll see on page 5. If we want to move on to page 6. We get into technology halfway down. You'll see this 6 FTE. One of the staff is only a school year staff member. And then you'll notice the 20,500 most of the way down. That stands out as a large increase, and I've explained why. Then the operation of the buildings is next section down. The rent is a big increase. There's an increase for Greg's training and development since he's now fully in this budget. And I also increased some of the supplies because along with our 5% increase, we're taking on some more expenses of the office. That was part of the negotiation of keeping it only at 5%. So I don't know if we'll keep moving along.
You go through your presentation and have more questions.
Okay. Moving on to page 7. You can see there's things that have been removed. We have, of the fee for service, there are just a couple things that I needed to keep in this budget. One is tuition reimbursement because staff in Windham Central through special ed, union staff, and with West River, they all get professional development through the central office. So that has to stay at that level, but you will see it calculated out on another, so it's only charged back to specific school districts. Then The transportation, we had talked about moving this out, but the contract is actually with Windham Central at this point in time, so for now, it has to stay in Windham Central, and River Valley gets billed out for a section of that due to their using West River for Woodsboro.
And there was some discussion too about when special ed became centralized, that transportation also became specialized.
It did. It was supposed to be, and actually food services are all supposed to be centralized as well. That was one of the pushes from the AOE during Act 173. And then, so the food section is just our admin person who oversees the monitoring and deals with the AOE and the claims reimbursement. So that's divided between the schools that use food services. So that brings us to the bottom of the general fund budget. There's a $307,999 increase, which is a 10% increase that involves moving people into that budget.
Okay, so that's the expenses for the first budget, the combination of superintendents and stuff that moved out. So we'll open the floor for discussion or questions. So we'll start with the TV land folks. Kate or Melissa, do you have any questions on the budget, expense budget for the general fund?
No, I'm all set.
Thank you, Melissa. Kate?
Trying to unmute.
Trying to unmute. Sorry, I was looking at the budget on my tiny screen.
And if you can, if you have a specific question, if you can refer to the page and line item, it'll help. So.
Yeah. No, it was, but thank you for calling out the part that everything's been consolidated, because I think that the numbers look so much bigger, but knowing that consolidation really helps. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Drew, I'll go to you first, and we'll work our way down this way if it's okay.
First of all, I think that the presentation is excellent. I appreciate the way that it was put together, and the rest of the documents I'm sure we'll get to. So as you mentioned, I was not at the executive committee meeting. The 5% salary assumption is something that I would like to discuss at some point. I don't know if now is the right time,
Yeah.
but or
No.
we want to hear the rest of the presentation. 5% of our highest paid administrator salary is a lot more than 5% of our general staff salary. Dollars for dollars, we're talking about, what could be almost a $7,000 raise for some of the administrators at 5%, where, the bulk of our staff is probably down in that $2,500 range. So I would like to recommend that we do a dollar amount as opposed to a percentage, because percentages don't buy groceries at the store, dollars do. And, being aware of the challenging fiscal times, I think it's a more responsible way for us to give raises out. So, an assumption that an employee works roughly a 2,000 hour, work year means that some people are, going to walk away with almost a $3 an hour raise on top of, a 7.8% increase in their contribution to their health insurance. So I would like to put that on the table as a suggestion that we, rather than do a percentage, find a number that seems reasonable as a salary increase and use that.
So I can say that some folks are under contract that are covered by this. There's very few that we have that we actually have the ability to make up or to determine raises. We did have a meeting, and we always meet with the officers just to kind of review it so that we can get a look at it and just see how it's gonna be, when we present it to the entire group to be reviewed. And that's always been a concern, and it gets discussed every time. So the 5% is just a budget number to put in there. We have asked in the past that it not be across the board, but we give the ability for the supervisors to determine what that number is gonna be, and those that are, working above and beyond and putting the extra effort in, they can recommend more money for them, and those that maybe need a little boost, they could do something a little less. I believe the superintendent, we had an agreement for 3 years, right? Are we still under that?
Next year is the third year.
Yeah, so the
4%.
superintendent, when we did the initial contract, his is set already, so it's actually very few people. but we can definitely have that discussion, but and then I'll get to
Just for clarity
Yeah.
though,
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that that conversation actually happened at an executive committee meeting,
Yes.
not the officers
I'm
meeting,
sorry.
where we had that
Well,
discussion
yeah.
just along that line. I just wanted to make sure
I
it wasn't just
I
officers.
confuse because the executive committee is mostly your officers and the board chairs, or that's what, that makes up the
You
executive
described it
committee.
exactly right.
I know.
It's just that it was all the boards, not just
So,
officers.
can you
having that
tell us,
conversation.
Bob, or Heidi, how many people does it affect that are not covered under contract and not covered under an agreement?
I mean, I'm gonna if ballparking it's okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
say 15.
15 total people.
Yeah.
And
Does that
there's,
sound about right to you?
Yeah, I would say you're actually a little bit over.
Oh,
okay,
maybe.
and those 15
13.
people are gonna be reviewed by their supervisors.
Yeah, we took that to mean that you were giving us a pool of that dollar amount, and then we would spread it out, but the dollar amount was based on the 5%, yeah.
And so I think, Drew, if you're good with the 5%, it's not, everybody's not guaranteed a 5% raise. I think we get into micromanaging if we tell them how to split it up between those 15 people in each department.
These are I'm assuming the 15,
Business
13.
office folks,
some of those are our highest paid, making more than 6 figures employees that we're talking
I
about.
mean, probably 2/3 of them are business office folks, which are not the highest paid. But there are some administrators in there as well, probably, yeah.
2, 3.
And again, my concern is that in a very challenging fiscal environment, we're asking the public to fund what is essentially, or could be, a $4, $5, $6 an hour raise in contributions to certain employees. And I don't feel comfortable with that, with the current kind of challenges in our community. Like, that's a lot to ask for, a fixed income senior that's getting very little. Or anybody else that's in the workforce. I think you're gonna have a hard time finding somebody that, works over at Grace Cottage right now that's gonna get a $4 an hour, $5 an hour raise this year. So again, I just think it's important that we recognize that this is a lot of money when you add the health insurance increase and 5%. Whether we spread that 5% and, give one person 4 and the other person 7, it's still the same amount of money. And it's a large amount of money because we're basing it against relatively large salaries in most cases.
Yeah, I would just add, the only thing I'd add to that is that the contributions the employees are making are also up, the 7.7%, whatever it is as well, so there's more, you know what I'm saying, so they're paying more as well for their health insurance as part of that.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop this for a second though, hang on, let me just, I think when we're talking in number in the budget, then it's okay to have the discussion here. If we wanna start talking specific people, then that's not a thing that we can do in open session, that needs to go into executive session. So,
I'm not talking about specific people, I'm suggesting that rather than a percentage, we go to a per person amount of,
okay,
as opposed to a percentage.
okay. I think, can we hold that thought for a little bit? Let's go around and see what other people have for concerns and then, or questions and comments, and then we'll come back to that. I've got that written down. Al, anything from you, boss?
Just did some quick math, just wanna make sure accurate. In terms of total reductions, it looks like down 2.7 FTE and up 2.4, so a net of negative 0.3 FTE. Just wanted to fact check that, so
Yes.
it seems as though we're down. So.
Andrew?
Can I clarify that, because I'm confused?
No, hang on. Was that just a comment you wanted?
It was just kind of a comment, but I mean, I understand exactly what Drew is saying. In these times, it's certainly challenging. So we'll look at, but yes.
Is that correct?
If you're talking about the fee for service added into the general fund, yes, that is correct.
Okay. Drew, you hold that, because we'll go around again. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm actually waiting to hear the second part of the presentation, because I'm trying to wrap my head out of here and into here and all of that, and it's almost one budget at this point with just two halves, and I think once we get there may be some more questions. But right now I'm okay.
So my only point of clarification, based on what Drew was talking about, of the $279,000 increase for 5%, much of that then is already baked into people's contracts. So I wonder if we could get a crude idea, it doesn't have to be exact, what portion of that falls into what Drew is talking about.
So when I came up with this number, I took the current salaries and added 5%. We don't create the letters of employment for the staff until after we do evaluations in the spring or around springtime. So it's more based on what the officers of the executive committee told me. That's the easiest way to just add it into all those places, and then it sort of trickles out depending on how evaluations go and what the supervisors determine at that time.
So as a clarification, the contracted people are getting what?
Right now, it's 5% across the board.
No, hang on,
Okay.
you gotta listen to the question.
Okay.
The people that are under contract, that are in this budget, what are they getting for an increase? What's the increase in the contract
So
this year?
there's no teachers, right, in this budget.
Right.
So this is just, the only people that might be under contract might be a
Well-
couple of administrators who might have a multi-year
Yes.
contract.
But I thought we had,
We haven't gone to the MTSS.
okay, I thought we had like,
Rich, can I help?
yeah,
I think what we're trying to get at is, of the 279,000, what portion of that is already obligated
Yes.
and committed to?
Yeah.
That's, I
That's
think
what-
that's what we're trying to get at.
For instance, Bob's, we already know is in the third year of his, so
Right.
that, we're not gonna mess
That's
with
at
that.
4%.
But yeah,
That's
so-
baked in. I wanna guess that anybody who is multi-year is probably 4 or lower, because we made them prior to the teacher settlements as well.
So of those, of the 13, 14 people that are in this, there is 1, 2, 3, 4 people
Who have contracts.
who have multi-year contracts.
So they're gonna be, yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm gonna guess they're probably 4 or lower percent.
okay,
So I don't know what the dollar amount is, we have to back that out, but.
so there's about 10 people that are not administrative staff
Correct.
that are in this, so out of those 10 people, is there any of them making, Drew said 6 figures, is there anybody making $100,000 in those 6?
Of
No,
those 10 or so now.
no.
I mean, the 10, I'm sorry,
No.
okay. Is
Well,
that-
I didn't mean to belabor this, I
Is that-
just thought
Yes,
of the
before-
279, some is
I'm sorry.
encumbered and some is not, so
Right.
to be continued, but I agree with Joe, let's see the big picture here.
Okay. You all set, sir?
Yes, absolutely, thanks.
Yes, speaking of percentages, so you have the health insurance going up 7.4%, but that's kind of an overall number. So looking on the budget, there are some areas where it's increasing by 50% and others going down by 38. So I don't think it gives a real understanding of what the actual percentage is per, for the actual policies that are in. So is there a way we could know what the increase is in general in health insurance?
Well, the increase is 83,000.
No, I understand that, but like, that must be, isn't that an overall
That's-
number
that's the
based on the number of
overall number.
employees? So if you reduce the number of employees, that increase wouldn't be, what I'm saying is,
That's the percentage increase for each plan that you have.
that's the actual increase per plan.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll go a little further and say it's the average, because there might be a
That's true.
plan that's 7.2, and there might be a plan that's 7.5, but
Okay.
7.4 was the average of the plans, they were all very close together.
And the variances that you see are sometimes, because these are individual people who have
Yeah.
switching plans or.
right. Oh, that's great.
That's
I just
what
thought that
this
was based on an increase on the overall budget number, but it's
No,
not.
and it's the people coming in from other budgets that are
Okay.
skewing that number, that's partly why people could change plans, and you're getting a 1.0 where you might have a 0.5 last time, this year's
I never
budget.
thought it'd say
So it is-
7.
it's
People
very-
get married and then it's a family plan
Right.
versus a single.
No, I get you, I just wanted to know what that's, I
The
never
seven
thought,
point four is the actual percentage of the average actual percentage of an increase for plans.
A plan, yeah.
thank you, maybe that's not so bad, I don't know.
It's still bad.
Plus the 12.
It's not double digits.
All right, thank you.
Less than everything above it.
Yeah.
Isn't it? But it's more than everything below it.
Thank you.
You all set?
Thank you.
Okay, so if I just, in my takeaway, there's some questions about, just for the, we wanna see what the portion of the budget is, for the increases, and then we wanna look at the increases, so I'm gonna hold that, and we'll come back to that at the end, like Dan said. Is there, with everybody having had a chance to ask some questions, second round, Melissa and Kate, did anything come up to you in the discussions? No. Melissa looks like she's good. Oh, she went away. Bye. Oh,
I'm good, yeah.
she's
has
trying to
to,
mute.
she takes her video off to speak.
Okay. So Drew, go ahead.
So, to Al's question, I think, maybe I'm understanding it wrong. So the positions at the top, the first three, they didn't go away, they just moved to local budget. So the reduction is the 0.5 FTE in the business office. The other ones just moved outside of the SU budget into a local
School
budget.
specific budgets.
So we didn't really reduce those staff positions, they just got,
Well, they
they're
were
just from this budget, but they're not,
Yeah.
we didn't eliminate employees.
That is correct.
The only really reduction in staff is the 0.5 FTE of the business office.
You good, sir?
Good clarification.
Yeah. And then,
Oh, sorry.
the second one, 10 people, even 12 or 13 people, with the salary increase of $279,000, that math doesn't work.
The 279.
Yeah, so it says salary increase 5%, 279,000. You know, if it was 10 people, that's $27,000 a piece. Like that, I'm sure they would love that, but that doesn't make sense.
Because
So
it's the number that came in, I think, is where,
So-
this is a little skewed because of me taking numbers that were separated and then bringing them in.
So you have a half-time person who was in the super's budget, half-time because the other half used to be in the MTSS budget, they're getting there. That, you know what I'm saying, that 0.5% shows the increase, but then you're also bringing in the other half of them, which also has an increase.
okay, so the way it read to me was that the salary increase of 5% was the equivalent of $279,000, which is why I'm looking at it going, this is a huge number.
It's partly because you're bringing in the other part of those salaries,
Moving
and
staff.
it was hard for me to figure out how to
Separate that out, yeah.
separate it out. So I can get more specific with that. I thought about breaking it down, but that's new money in this budget.
Yeah, well, we could find out, we could take the
yeah.
people who are already contracted, figure out what those percentages are guaranteed, subtract that, and then find the 10 or so that are still in, or 13, or whatever it is, and then we could figure out what the real number really is, as far as like an increase, and what the 5% equals. We could back that out, I think, right?
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Just because we were moving the full of them in, it was,
Excuse.
excuse me, yeah.
It's gonna.
Same with the health,
Yeah.
yeah.
It will be a lot less confusing next year, and I think, but again, one thing that Windham Central I've always been proud of is, if there's a position in there, they don't need it, it goes away. Yeah, they may have the person do something else, but, we just don't keep people in a position because it's there, so it is always hard, and then, especially when there's more needs, even though there's less students, you have more special needs or more staff to help those, it gets confusing too. It'd be really nice if year over year it could be apples to apples. Are you set, Drew?
Thank you.
Al?
I'm good.
Joe? Good, yeah. I'm sorry. You also can. Okay. That's budget number 1. Budget number 2 is the MTSS. And I actually wrote on that for the general fund. But Drew, when you were throwing out numbers, I was looking at the wrong thing, wondering where you're getting from. Yeah. Bob Seeger and I turned the page.
Okay, MTSS budget, including the pre-K, ECSE, early childhood, special education. Overall, this budget is increased by 3.4%. I have the reductions at the top. These again are positions that, between this year and next year, movement of trying to have more efficient delivery of services while reducing staff.
And just to highlight from Drew's question earlier, there is a difference between reduced and removed.
Right.
And that was true on the first page, but just notice that difference here, because there is a difference. These are reductions versus removed.
So the
meaning two
first one
different
here
budget.
is.
The first two are actual gone positions.
Gone, okay.
Yeah, reduction of 1.4 AST positions. We have a reduction of 1.2 special ed teachers. We've replaced a special ed teacher at Leland and Gray with a para position instead. That saves, the net savings is $57,000 on that one. We had a behavioral specialist retire at the end of fiscal year 27, and there's a savings with the new hire of $14,000. We removed part of the special ed guidance position to the school-specific budget, so that's removing $54,000 from this budget. Reduction of special student transportation from other due to students graduating, so there was a $40,000 reduction in transportation. The director of curriculum position is partially funded by grant funds, and the executive director of teaching and learning has been moved to the general fund budget, so there's a reduction of $57,000 net between those two things. All the fiscal service business office has been moved. And then there was a rearranging of, with the MTSS audit that we undertook last year, there was a rearranging of directors and assistant directors. So there was a reduction of a 1.0 FTE position due to that. So the reductions that we've been able to make out of the MTSS budget are $671,000. The increases based on the needs are, we are increasing the, if you will recall, let me just back up for a minute, going into 26, we estimated we were gonna need 2 ECSE paraeducators for this year. We ended up having 2 part-time, so 1 FTE position, because the students that we were expecting have not entered our services out of choice state. So, the 2 part-times are dealing with other students, so we are still anticipating the need for 2 more ECSE paraeducators for next year. We have increased a position for a speech language assistant. I've estimated that. Currently we are outsourcing it and want to save some money by bringing it in. Due to reduction of some grant money, the support staff has increased in the local budget. Academic support staff by $67,000. The MTSS health insurance increase is $55,000 due to taking some of that out of the grant funds. We have hired a speech language professional, which increased the budget by $129,000, but we also were paying for out of district services or out of non-employee services. And so we're saving those professional services of $130,000. Under, it's a wash essentially, but unemployment compensation.
We count every $1,000.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Unemployment compensation again was not calculated correctly, so you'll see a big increase there. One of the things we have done in trying to be more particular and accurate with our budgeting is there is 5 special education paraeducators that are currently school-wide paraeducators, and they are dealing with more behavioral issues than IEP students. So we have moved those individual positions into the SEL part of the MTSS budget so that it's really a behavioral section of our budget. So you're gonna see a big increase in that section. And there have not, the support staff for this within the MTSS budget don't have a contract yet. It's under negotiation, so there are no individual increases in lines, but I have set aside a special item with an estimated increase for holding a spot open for those negotiations. So the additions cost $236,000, so your net result of this MTSS budget is a reduction of $434,000.
So why don't you go to the line items?
Okay. Okay, so if we go to page 9 of the MTSS expenditure budget, again, I put in the FTEs, so you got an idea of how many staff members are for each. We have these out by section, so we start with pre-kindergarten, so this would be sort of the ECSE position, the early childhood special education section. And you can see that there is some changes in health insurance, probably some differences in plans that people had taken, and teachers, there's some column changes, and of course the increases. I remind you that what I budgeted for fiscal year 26 was not quite enough for what the actual contract was, so 27 we're catching up with that, so there's going to be more than the 5.5% under the master contract for fiscal year 27. Going down, professional services under ECSE, again, we have a child that's getting some specific services outside of the district.
Will you bring me my charger?
Hey, Melissa, can you mute yourself?
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. That was planned comic relief.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Are you the charger, Jim?
Where were we?
So going down to the elementary special education, you'd see a reduction by the variance. There's been a little reduction there. You're still on page 9. There's some reduction as you go down this section in tuition. These are based on what we expect for next year. There's some graduations happening, and for what's on our list, I rely on the special ed department to really determine what they're looking at for next year. So going on to page 10. Special ed TLC, this is the program that's at Newbrook. That is up a little bit. We have 6 students that are in that program currently, and it's out of Newbrook. I just want to point out that the cost right now is still less than moving them out of district, but it's something that we evaluate every year to see what's happening. Then we have some transportation for elementary in the next section. Pretty straightforward. Then we move on to secondary special education, and again, these are separated out by some certain programs. This is overall some reductions here in this special education section. We moved paras out of this, so that's one of the places you're seeing a reduction of a para, and then some movement into the SEL program. Going on to page 11. Again, there's some changes to tuitioning, some going up, some going down, depending on if they're expected to be in non-public Vermont programs or public Vermont programs. Another section for transportation of secondary students. There's some high numbers here, and that's because we don't have enough drivers willing to drive students. So anytime we use outside, like Adventure Limousine, it costs a fortune. So if you know anybody who's looking for part-time work, I'd love to hire them. Send them my
But
way.
then that line item will go up.
We would.
I know this.
Thanks. Okay, then we go into school, SU-wide, and case managers fall into that, which we have 3 of them. Again, changes based on health insurance, salaries based on salary schedules. Next section is the behavioral specialist. This is where the previous person retired and we've hired someone new, so there's a little bit of savings overall in that section. Going on to page 3.
12.
I don't know where they were.
3rd page of this.
Yeah, 12, page 12.
That's what I'm here for, Heidi.
Thank you. The special ed tutoring program at Leland and Gray, there's a small reduction based on a different teacher in that program this year, and a paraeducator. We've got 2 of them. We didn't have enough in that program last year, so there's some movement of that. We have a special ed home program. for the next section, and we had a reduction of a teacher there this year, so that's gone down, 2 paras. Then the guidance section you'll see is gone, that's removed and gone to school specific. We go on to the psychology services, which is a typical increase. Moving on to page 13, the section of speech pathology. We have an increase of, this is where I have budgeted a para in here, an assistant, special speech pathology assistant. So we hope to have that position filled next year. This is also where we hired a specialist. You'll see the 129,000, but you'll see it offset below where we have reduced what we were spending at 150, or if you see 168 for actual cost in 25. So some savings there, or at least minimal. The next section, OTs and CODAs. So you'll see we have moved, we got rid, or one OT person left last year, so we replaced with a CODA, which is a little cheaper, so there's some reduction there. Page 14, physical therapy, that's similar in terms of it's the same, just an increase with the contracts. Academic support is the next section. So this is one of the places that you're gonna see skewed numbers, because we've historically had academic support teachers half-time, half FTE out of our grant funds. And with grant funds being reduced, more of that is gonna be in your local budgets. Just to note, we do pay on a lot of money in the grants on boosters when you pay union staff. It goes back to the state of Vermont, and so more in the local funds means less paid out of the grant for going back to the state of Vermont. It's 25% of a salary that goes back to the state of Vermont when a union staff member is paid out of a grant. Just important to note. So we have a total of 5.5 FTE in your local budget for academic support.
That's after the reduction of 1.4.
After the reduction, yes. And then we have a director of curriculum that is 0.4 in the local funds, and we have 0.7 of the grant coordinator assistant who's helping with the academic support staff, curriculum, director of curriculum, and the academic support staff. Next section is the student services, the SEL. So this is where you're gonna see the huge increase for paraeducators, because we haven't had them in this section before. These are 5 staff members in schools that are, as I mentioned, helping with behavioral students. And we have our director of SEL that's in that position as well. That position has a little bit funded out of a grant currently. So that's why the huge increases in HSA, HRA, FICA, and that sort of thing. Next page, 15. Again, you'll see like life, because you've added so many staff, that's gone up huge. Again, this is all part of the SEL that we just were looking at. Audit, I took the audit expenses out of here. It's fully funded in the general fund at this point. I did leave some legal services in here, as there are sometimes legal services for special education issues. Next line, you'll see my special item, which is set aside for increases in support staff. Then we go into, this is the director of student services, special ed, and clerical, so we have 1.0, and then her assistant is also the homeless liaison, which is required out of Title I funds, so she is a partially funded 0.15 in that as well. That's pretty straightforward in terms of the expenses of the office. Employment and training is for the entire district that they put on for their special ed staffing. The following, next section down, was the fiscal services that had been pulled out in the past because of reimbursement models, so that's completely removed. Page 16, again, the top section follows that, it's removed. Then you have a little more transportation costs, that's more the administrative piece, that we have someone who handles our drivers. And then we get into grant funds, so that's the end of the local funds right there. And then we go into the grant funds that help pay for small portions of, for instance, speech pathology, there's a 0.4. It goes through the IDAB because it helps with the pre-K kids that need services. So that's the end of 16, going on to page 17. There is 0.6 of some OTs and CODA staff, again for pre-K services in here. You have some summer services, that's the TLC portion of this for kids that need continuing services in the summer, so that's set aside for that. And then we have a paraeducator for summer services here that gets paid, oh no, I'm sorry, this paraeducator, we have one current paraeducator that's being paid out of grant funds for a small group in the elementary, so that's in this grant. Let's see, private tuition costs, that's gone up tremendously. But we're covering that out of this grant, so it's not in your local funds. Then we go down into some in training that gets paid out of the grant, as well as software for special education. We do have some administrative costs for the administration of grants, and that's that $15,000 at the bottom of page 17. And following through some more grant funds that are there is a very small $5,000, almost $6,000 grant that helps pay for a very small portion of one of the ECSE staff members, 0.004, it's nothing. But it's there. It's specific for that purpose. Then we have, this is the other part of the MTSS clerical, is in con admin, which is for the administration of the grants. It's built into the grant, so there's 0.3 of that position that's paid out of the grant. And then continuing down, you'll see where I have my academic support staff. 1.6 of the staff is now getting paid through the grant. You'll see, for instance, the Vister's pension payments that I was talking about, 38,000 goes back to the state, which is just ridiculous. So, my personal issue. Then we have a little bit of the director of curriculum, you'll see, is in different pieces because of being an instructional coach as well as the director. So you'll see her as 0.4 on page 18, and then if you go on to page 19, you'll see her under 0.4 of another section for academic support, and 0.1 for some specific instruction curriculum. It's listed in 3 different ways based on how the grant is written in the system, so that can be a little confusing, but it's all one person. And then there's removal of, that's the following section on page 19. And we come down to the homeless liaison as the final section on page 20, which is 0.15, that helps deal with those students that need help in our supervisory union. So that brings us to the bottom of the MTSS budget. We do have a revenue page.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so on expenses, Drew, to your point earlier, you go to page 15 and you go to that life insurance line 5292, like the 5th line down, you know, oh my gosh, 1,000% increase, but it's really $1,200, $1,100. So it's all relative. If somebody looks at that and says, "What's this about 1,000% increase?" We can say it's $1,200 in a several $1 million budget. So I'm going to go opposite this time. Emily, you get first.
I'm good. I'm still
It takes a little time to
through,
get through the whole
but
thing.
I'm good for the moment.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to absorb it all.
I feel, I told my board that I would represent what they said last night. It's not necessarily me, but a member of our board felt like, I think a bit like what Drew feels like this is gonna be a shock. This person wasn't aware of the fact that the biggest increase was due to the loss of the grant monies. But I feel like in order to be fair to my colleagues on my board, I should state that I would like to make sure that we are as tight as we can possibly be and work on things that are crucial and necessary, which isn't to say that you haven't already done all of that, but you can see where I'm coming from here. I just want to say, let's be really careful.
You all set, sir?
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Rich.
Joe?
Good, thanks.
Al?
Good for now, but I want to talk about transportation maybe at some point, just, and you touched on it, so, yeah.
Drew?
So, page 14, academic support. When you said in the local budget, you meant in this budget, not in the local district budget, right?
I mean, yes, local funds paying it versus grant funds, that's what I meant.
That wasn't moving out to a different budget. And then, the 6 students in the TLC program, which I put a note somewhere.
It's at the beginning, it's page 10.
Oh, that's why I haven't got that page here, so.
Yeah, flip it over.
So we're spending close to $200,000 a student on that program, is that?
I am counting it as 65,000. If you look at the 392,000 and you divide it by 6 students.
I'm sorry, I read it upside down. I was reading the top. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh.
Previous.
Yes.
Easy to do that. But
Yep.
It is confusing.
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lines, okay? That's why I went,
Yeah,
that.
thank you. I'm glad you pointed out. I'm sure somebody else looks at it that way too.
And I took your thunder away with the 1,000% increase, didn't I?
It's just me not understanding, it's okay.
Are you good, Drew?
Thank you.
Melissa or Kate in TV land?
I'll go. I'm off mute already. I really appreciated the part that you called out how much the federal grants had gone down in this section. That $356K really stuck out to me. That was kind of crazy. And then I just want to make sure, like, does this budget meet the needs of all of the students? Are we keeping student-centered as our focus?
Yes.
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 Yeah, and I'll say one step further that, you see some reductions already, in special ed and in ASTs, things that we've already done this year are not filled positions or switch things around based on the 26 budget. That the analysis that we've been able to do since the reorganization, just in the last 4 months, has been really good. And I anticipate that there'll be more of that sort of thing moving forward. But 4 months in is 4 months in, and so the best we can do right now is this. But I do anticipate that while meeting the kids' needs and giving them exactly what they need, Kate, we will probably still find some efficiencies as we dig deeper. Our special ed director is literally in her 4th month of doing the job ever.
And it has to be done thoughtfully.
And it has to be done really thoughtfully because we don't have the economy of scale that other places have. And so we have to really, when you talk about a para this is real life kids in classrooms that are being impacted. So we are taking our time doing that thoughtfully. We're looking at the programming. We mentioned TLC was one of the ones that we've done the audit on already that we're going to continue to work with, and home program and other programs that we have, the Maple program here at Leland and Gray. So everything is under scrutiny, and I would love to say that 4 months from now we may have even more ideas for you, but this is due now. So this is where we're at.
All set, Kate?
Thank you. Yes.
Melissa?
I am so sorry about my technology set snafu, but I think I'm just wrapping my head around all these numbers, and it's all good to me for right now.
Well, I'd just like to make a couple quick comments. Kate brought up a good point, and one of the things that's always happened with special ed is it's kind of like you have to, the MTSS, I'm sorry, cut it 20%, you still have to provide the services. I know, and it seems as though a lot of stuff gets dumped on schools that was really, you look at some of these line items and why are, I remember when we first hired a guidance counselor in Dover, one of our board members said, what kind of guidance are they giving them? What's their career? They're going to the high school. What do they need? And its guidance is a lot different than it was when I was in school, probably even more so when Emily was in school, or Dan. But, I mean, guidance has been different, guidance counselors were helping you go to college, and now it's a whole different thing. One year, 20 some odd years ago in Dover, I tell this story a lot, but we, the day before school started, we had a family move from our town down to Stamford. And it saved us $100,000, which at that time was, 10% of our budget. And Stamford was so upset, they called us up and said, don't you really want to pay for this? You already budgeted for it, we didn't. Bob was making a really good point that, this is a budget. We don't, if I could predict the future, what was gonna happen starting July 1st to June 30th of 27, I sure wouldn't be here, I would be on some tropical island because I'd have played the futures market and I wouldn't need this, The issue is that we don't know what the future holds and we don't know students moving in, students moving out. And it's, especially in some of our towns, it's very transient. In Dover, we used to, when the new plants were being refueled and serviced, in Vernon and even at Rowe, we'd see a huge increase up till the November 15th deadline, and that's when they, everybody moved out. We'd have a lot of students. It used to be really good. We'd get a huge student count just before, before they did it. So I've always been impressed with Windham Central that we don't just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we spend it. And if you look, we've had some pretty good surpluses over the years because we're still spending them down now. I understand that we're gonna get into that and, Heidi added something on the bottom, but we don't get to vote income, we don't get to vote how much money we get from the federal government, we don't vote that, well, we do vote, we vote every 4 years in November, but we don't get any input on that, we don't get what the state says, and a lot of things move. Do you guys remember revenue sharing and the money towns used to get every year, $100,000, and I remember one year New Thing bought Creepin' Bejesus, a bulldozer to go plow the roads, and all the towns got them because there was all this revenue sharing and people would buy, trucks. We don't seem to get that, and it seems to be the cuts start at the top, at the federal government, the state level, and then they filter down to us. I do appreciate, I think you guys have done a great job on this budget. I know we've moved some stuff around, and I feel bad for people that just look at this because it's kind of crazy looking, the numbers. But I don't know how you reduce it. If there was anything that could be reduced, I believe you guys would have given it to us. Bob's reducing it already. What'd you reduce it by?
So I don't know if my numbers are right, so I'm looking at Heidi. But I was just trying to add them together to see, because one's a 3.4 and one's a 10 point whatever. It's just trying to see what it actually is when you put it all together.
Compared to what it was last year?
Yeah, and I'm getting 4.9.
Increase?
Which I mean.
That sounds right.
Which, given, and that doesn't include, obviously that includes some people going out to local budgets from the fee for service, for sure. But that includes the, increases for salaries and benefits and all that kind of stuff. And when you think about it from that point of view, from the expenditure side,
and that's what we
feels kind of reasonable.
That's all we control, is we control expenditures. We don't control them.
It doesn't end up that way at the end, but it feels reasonable when you start.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna go around a second time. So, we're gonna go this way and then there.
Yeah, I just wanted, first of all, thank you again. He called me first, so I didn't really have time to say that. I was still looking at numbers. But this conversation we've just been having just now has prompted me to think about, to ask, based on the decision we have recently made to join ABOCES, which is a boards of cooperative education services, and that's a formal decision we've already made. How do you see that impacting, we did it for a reason, how do you see that impacting our budgeting down the road? I know this is gonna take a little time,
Yeah,
but it might be helpful for everybody to understand
right.
the impacts.
Well, I think about it from the standpoint of, so take TLC just as an example, without getting into the weeds, what was the number? Was you had 60-something thousand
64.
per kid. And we know that if that was in a private, whatever, therapeutic school, some other type of situation, it'd be, with transportation, it'd be, a lot more.
Right.
There'd be extraordinary, revenue coming back as a result of that to offset it, but it would be a lot more. What I see the BOCES being able to do is to be able to develop programming that would get us somewhere to have that economy of scale to do something for less.
Exactly.
With more kids, with the staff that are really highly trained to do that work in a bigger place, then you can bring in more kids together. So it's like that pooling of resources to give us the economy of scale to drive that price down. That's the kind of stuff I see when I think about it.
So that's not just dollars either. That's actually meeting the needs of students in a better way as well.
Potentially better, right? I
Yeah,
mean, not that
okay.
TLC's not doing, that's not what I'm
No,
trying to say, but
it's not what I
but
meant
yes, you
either,
could have
but yeah.
improved performance at a reduced cost. That's the dream, so
Is it a dream?
it is the dream.
I'm not sure it's a dream.
Well, some people have different dreams.
And there's been a lot of,
Yeah.
I understand why you're saying that's the dream, because we've just, we've been working cooperatively, but frankly, there's a ton of research showing that it's not a dream, that it's actually a reality.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying,
Yeah.
Like you're making fun of the fact that that's what I dream about.
No, I love the fact that you're dreaming, but I don't think this is a dream. I think
No,
it's actual
that
reality
is-
based on research
Yeah.
and actual situations.
So, and I think the other piece of it is challenging for us is our geographic isolation.
Yeah.
And how that fits into this, and because anytime you have to put a kid in a transport somewhere, whether it's adventure or whether it's our own Subarus, like it's time. And, so to be able to do that in a way that might be quasi-local in a BOCES situation, it could actually shorten those as well, depending on where the kids are going, what that looks like. We could be hosting one of them. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities. We have buildings that have space in some places,
Right.
so anyways.
Thank you.
Yep,
I
absolutely.
appreciate that. Yes, thanks.
Dwight?
I'm all set, thank you.
I think you're gonna get to this on page 4, just a mention of the 800,000 of fund balance. That discussion is coming up, is that right? So, okay, I'll just wait on that.
So, this is the kind of review process. We approve expenditure budgets. We also get to approve monies that we have in our possession, so we've always moved money out of reserves to help offset, because we planned that back when we were getting ESSER funds and other funds. We didn't say, let's just, do it all in one shot. We deliberately made a plan to move forward, to spread that out. Other districts, other SUs spend it all in one shot. Now they've seen higher increases, so yes. But let's keep on expenditures and then we'll move forward. Joseph, sir.
I think I'm good for now.
You wanna bring up your transportation thing, cause you said you had,
Yeah, it's a bigger discussion in terms of not necessarily just with MTSS as well,
Okay.
so, yeah.
cool, Drew, sir. Sorry.
I liked the presentation, the way the budget was. I think it was much easier to understand this year, so I definitely appreciate that. I know we're only talking about expenditures, Rich, but it is tough to hear that, we lost almost 10% of our students that we're responsible for. So, and we're seeing an increase, because that means that cost that we're pushing per student is increasing even larger, right? That's that much more impact on our budgets because we have less students. So I don't have any other questions, but I'm concerned about the dollars.
Yeah, and I won't speak for the legislature, but I will say that a small school is more expensive per kid. And like, that's just a fact at a economy of scale. So when you talk about, when they started talking about the, what's it called, the foundation formula,
Oh.
and how that will get applied potentially in the future, depending on redistricting and all those things, that, that some of the bigger places, they don't stress about that as much, because they have that economy of scale. We could dump those 100 kids, we could double that, we could dump 200 more into our schools spread out, and we wouldn't necessarily have extra expenses. But taking the 100 away doesn't save us anything either. You know, that's the economy of scale we just don't have. And that's the part that you're absolutely right. I don't have an answer for it.
I also, can I point out one thing?
Yep, go ahead.
One of the paragraphs we didn't really get into on the first summary, executive summary page, points out that we serve currently 198 students with IEPs and an additional 14 students undergoing special education evaluations, which doesn't even include the kids that may be coming in to these pre-K programs that are in significant needs. And it also doesn't include those kids that need intervention help that don't qualify for IEPs. I think that's a staggering number, and I just want to point that out. That's a huge amount of need when you're looking at 866 students.
I was just gonna ask, I asked you if I could ask, because I'm not gonna go over it, but what is the percentage of our students that are on certain?
IEPs, I mean, it's about a quarter, I mean, it's a quarter of the population that have IEPs.
No, if you've got 866 students and 120, it's not.
No, 198.
198.
It's 23%.
200 out of 800.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is, it's about 25.
How does that compare to the rest of the state? I'm just curious, is that normal, or are we?
Great question.
There's ranges, and I think it depends. In rural areas where there's high poverty, it's higher. So like, we're probably within the normal of those types of places when you compare us to those. If
And
you compare us
also-
to Chittenden County, we're probably quite a bit higher. You know,
But the other side of that too is that we have, there's more than just students with IEPs, because the MTSS was supposed to be support, intervention for all students.
right?
And there are a lot of studies that show if you can find, I mean, Dover was an example, we dumped a lot of money into early ed. We went to a full-time kindergarten, a 4-year-old program, 60%. And our goal in a single grades, and our goal was, so by second or third grade, every student's at grade level reading. And for 3 or 4 years, we had no special ed costs at all, because we had dumped a lot of money into that early. You pull that money away, then you're gonna spend more money, not only at the high school level, because you're bringing people, trying to catch them up, but after they get out of school, you have a lot of extended, we just went through this, we just had a report on this at the state level. And then, but not only are you spending it at the school level, but then you're spending it beyond that in human services,
Right.
and I forget the other. So it's a hard thing, but I think
Can I
percentage.
just add one thing to that? If people are curious, and I think you should be, and I think you are, there has been we've spent, the state, the task force, I'll just be very specific, the task force, the redistricting task force has spent the summer and fall diving deep into data, and has found data that I have never seen before, that I've looked for years, comparing apples to apples and comparing districts to districts, regions to regions, because you can do it when you see data on spreadsheets. And that is available for you to look at. And I encourage you to do so by going into the redistricting task force pages that they have and going to those links. The last couple of meetings sort of pulls links together into the report. There's another meeting, is it tomorrow? Sorry, tomorrow. And that is really helpful to understand how a region like ours, or even an SU like ours, might see, or let's say, rural regions might have higher percentages of special ed. We've seen that happening. And also how we compare to others in the state, in regions like ours and in regions differently than ours. And one last thing I want to say, because Bob brought it up, but I hear a pushback on something that Bob said regularly, and he's absolutely right. I'm not contradicting what you're saying, but some people will, and that is that larger school districts don't worry so much about the shifts like that, but they have other things that they worry about as well.
course,
And they have recently, so in our larger districts, they've recently had to reduce their spending because of Act 127, the shifting the weights around that we did. And there are some school districts that have actually reduced staffing levels of like 100 students over a 2-year span. I just heard that number from Essex Junction School District. Somebody just gave me that, don't hold me to it, but I heard that numbers of staff reductions. That has a huge impact too. And so I think everybody in the state has their own, the issues are different everywhere, but they're important. And there's a lot of data that you've never been able to see before, but you can now, and look at those reports.
So back to you, Drew, were you all set?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Melissa or Kate, last,
No, that was a good presentation, thank you.
Kate?
That was good. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so again, I think we had a couple points, transportation, but that's kind of more general, broad. I think we have to vote, what we vote is, we vote on an expenditure budget. So we can look at it, we can look at what income's gonna do, but we can't change our income's gonna be what it's gonna be, and we're not even exactly sure what it's gonna be yet. There's, again, it's like, we don't know what the state's gonna give, we don't know what the, well, yeah, the state and the federal, but more the state too, because the state
Comes down
is
to that.
right. And then it's how much per pupil they're giving us and what their grants are. So on the expenditures, is there anything anywhere that anybody'd like to make any changes in the expenditures? And going once?
Well, my answer is I'm not certain yet, like,
Okay. So thinking just expenditures, cause that's what we can control, when would you be certain?
well, we asked about specific information on the, personnel, so
Yeah.
I wanna see that.
Increases, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to know, what
So
those
this is
numbers,
what I'm trying to get at.
yeah,
here.
what those numbers look like.
So
And
what exactly do you wanna see? Just so we make sure we get it.
what those costs are, right? Specifically, we talked about there's certain employees that already have contracts at maybe 3 or 4%, because we may, as we're looking at it, decide that we can't afford the 5%. Or, again, it's not a set in stone thing yet, we haven't voted on it.
Yeah.
And then I do think, so I'm gonna disagree with you that the revenues don't matter, because I think they do matter.
No, I understand they matter, but.
And they do, and they matter to me as far as the expenditure budget goes, because it's not only about, the services, but it's also about community members being able to live here, right? So I wanna know what the impact is going to be on the local budgets, because if this, for example, increase causes us to have to cut programs in the local schools because we can't make our budgets, then that has an impact. So both sides of the equation matter to me, so I won't be able to.
Okay, hang on, go back for just 1 second. You're concerned about the increase in the
So,
in the general budget, and you wanna know which ones, how much is variable, what's not under contract. Okay.
Yep.
So how much is the increase, how much is the increase for non?
If I can, maybe, I think, because I think I understand exactly where you're going, Drew, is of that 5%, some is contracted at less than 5%. So if we subtract out the ones that are gonna be contracted, then take the rest of the
Right.
salaries and multiply that by 5%, it's probably gonna be slightly smaller than the 294 or whatever's in there, so.
Yeah. No, so how much is the increase for non-contract? What's that number, the budget number?
Or what would 5% of that be as an overall number?
Okay.
I think, can I just say, I think my understanding of the conversation, because I remember having this conversation at the executive committee meeting. Were you there or no?
No,
You
we
might have
moved
missed
the
that
date
one.
and I missed
Okay,
it.
sorry. My understanding was, because we did kind of dig in deep on this, because the exact same questions you're asking came up, right? And as we've done in other years, we base a percentage on the needs of our kids, take into consideration the already contracted things, and we know that in our school districts around the SU and across the state, that it has been very hard to retain staff. And in fact, we in Windham Central have seen 2 schools close because we were unable to achieve staffing levels, period. We literally couldn't staff buildings and had to close them because we couldn't staff them anymore because of the reduction in the number of kids in those schools, and we couldn't find staff to do that job. So all of those things were taken into consideration. But we also said during that meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, Heidi and Bob and Rich and anybody else who was there, that this is what we're budgeting, but we don't know what we will actually be spending on increases because evaluations need to be done and work, staffing levels change and go up and down. So I'm not questioning your questions here, but I think that also there's a level of trust that I think we kind of came to in the end at that meeting where we said, okay, this fits in, it mimics what is happening in our school districts on contracted staffing, our contracts, and we'll just put this out there, but we expressed our same concerns that you're expressing, that we'd like to keep this as low as possible. So there's that fine balance all the time. And I just wanted to mention that because I think, it's been really hard to retain staff and, I hate seeing schools close like that when we can't staff them. And I want to make sure we do what you said, which is making sure we keep our programming so we can keep our kids in our schools, in our communities. So anyway, my little
Okay,
get all
so,
my talking points.
we'll get the increase, what that actually is in dollars and cents. What else do we need to get on the expense side? Everybody's good with everything else on the expense side but the increase? So let me ask a question. Government shuts down, we get no grant money from the feds, and we get whatever we get from the state. What in this budget, Bob and Heidi, could be reduced?
Based on what we know right now,
Yeah.
well, we don't have anything off the top of my head. I think if we had something off the top of our heads, we would have already reduced it like we did with many of these other positions.
Okay.
I think, like I said, I think we may discover things in the next 4 to 6 months for next year, but that's, we won't know that at the time we need to adopt the budget and pass on the assessments. And I would say this, like, when you think about this, well, let's say across the board, we're like, well, we're gonna take out 5 FTEs somehow. What's the bottom line on 5 FTEs? What's the impact of kids on those 5 FTEs if they're kid facing? And what's the actual, what do you get from a savings when you work the formula, depending on what the revenue side says? I don't know. And does that cost benefit analysis work itself out? I don't know. But I don't have anything right now off the top of my head that I can say what's we reduced, because otherwise we would have put it in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So let's move on then, folks. So let's go back to the bottom of page 4. So the sky is falling. The bigger story, however, is loss of revenue from federal grant funds of $356,000 over FY '26, which was not a net effect of an increase of 42.464%. So they're recommending $800,000 in fund balance with the net effect of a 21% increase. So anyways, let's go, that was kind of the bottom there. If you go moving forward, one of the things I always ask for, because again, it's the crystal ball, I think on page 22, right, this is where we stand. It's unaudited, the auditors have been here, but they just haven't given you their full report. So right now, and again, it's different budgets, so it's hard to compare apples to apples. It appears as though the general fund, which superintendent's budget, it looks as though you're gonna have about a $7,000.
Well, we're planned on using 100,000.
Yeah.
So currently, that's not involved in that yet.
Correct.
So I looked closely at where we haven't spent some money and where we have spent some money, and I think we're good. I think all of these budgets are gonna be pretty tight by the time all is said and done when we get to the end of this year. Reductions here or there, but everything changes a little bit. As the year goes, we've already are losing an HR person and training a new person. There's some training that goes with that. So I think we're gonna be pretty close in everything that we've budgeted for and expected to use. I think we're gonna end up using that close to 100,000 of the general fund this year, and I think we're gonna, depending on what we get back for special ed extraordinary costs, we could be close to using most of the $1 million we set aside for special ed expenses. So that would end up leaving us.
So you think, you're projecting that what you budgeted is what you're gonna spend?
Yes, I do think so.
So there won't be, because in the years past, we
I know.
had surpluses.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
We had ESSER funds that really helped let us move things around, and even though they were in the budget, we could save that budgeted money, and last year, I tried really hard to tighten it as much as I could.
Didn't see it, did you bring what we have for fund balances?
That's what this is.
Okay,
So
then,
this is the fund balance as of the end unaudited of this year.
yeah,
This is currently what we're getting in, what I'm expecting to get in based on assessments, what the expenses are. And this is where that would fall. This is the year-over-year change, so this is showing that we would probably lose close to $1 million as predicted.
The variance.
That does not have extraordinary special ed costs into it, and I do have 500,000 that I think we're gonna get in for special ed extraordinary costs. So it could be a savings there, but that's something that's really hard to predict at this point in the school year.
okay, so where's this 800,000 you wanna use?
It's gonna be of this, the 1.19, it would leave us with around $400,000 left in the fund balance.
Okay.
Where is that, on page 22?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So it's the fourth column over, FY '20 ending unaudited. It's the 11,90116.
yeah,
So does the 1 million come out of that?
yes, cause it's part of the 2.1 million that's built in between the revenues and the expenses, leaving you with 1.1, almost 1.2 left after that, yes,
At the end of this year.
at the end of '26.
And then whatever extraordinary funds that may come in will get
Correct.
added to that.
Right,
Okay.
it does not leave you with much to use in the following years.
So if we spend that 800,000, then right
Spending
now,
everything.
you're predicting that we're pretty much,
Well, we'll be spending about 2/3 of it,
Yeah.
right?
Of the, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have about a third left.
which is essentially where Lori was working towards, and she had laid it out prior to me, was knowing that we'd be using chunks as we dealt with the after effects of losing the ESSER funds.
But again, we're much better shape than a lot of other
Yeah.
SUs. Okay, that's 22, 23.
23 is the breakdown of the MTSS budget, which includes ECSC in these numbers. So it's a little bit different than what you looked at last year because ECS wasn't in here, but I've added it into all the numbers under the F26 budget. This shows that the budget for fiscal year 27 is just under 300,000 more at a 3.4% increase. The census block grant is going down significantly because our student enrollment is going down significantly. And that is a number that they've given us. The next column with the CFP grant, that's the title grants. I have removed Title 2 and 4 because I do not believe we'll be getting those anymore. I have flat funded what we got this year for Title 1. There's a lot of stuff happening at the federal level about Title 1, so this is my best guess right at the moment. IDAB, I've also heard should be flat funded or potentially may go up, but again, it depends on what happens at a federal level. So I flat funded it. Pretty much we had a little bit of a rollover, which is why it's going down just 7,000. For Con Admin, I expect that to be a little bit more than what we had originally budgeted based on our indirect rate. It was lower last year and it's gone up this year, so I'm hoping that maintains it. The EEE block grant has gone down a little bit, and extraordinary special ed expenses that we get reimbursed. I have budgeted $526,000 for this year. I'm hoping because we have some significant special ed costs, that child is going to be a senior next year, so I expect we'll still have those significant costs, but again, I wanted to be cautious, so I went under that 500,000 number based on what I had gotten from special ed. So with all those numbers and applying 800,000, it does reduce the cost down to 21.89% from what it would be, which is the 46% increase based on the significant decrease in grants. So then it works out, the board approved using a 2-year ADM average and using last year's numbers. So it's a rolling average of students in the building, that's the ADM. And the second section below shows that the ADM that I was working with, the numbers under FY27 total long-term ADM. And those are the averages between last year and this year and last year. Or, excuse me, last year and the year before. It's 2 prior years. It doesn't rely on my ADM for this year because we're still working those numbers out, and that's how the board had approved it. So I left what there was for the 26, so you could see the comparisons. I'm happy to answer any questions, but it gives you the percentage changes and the cost, which is going up significantly. It's not a happy story.
When are you gonna give us good news?
Drew, I would love to give good news. You have no idea.
Well, you actually did. You says, I mean, we've gotten down to 2 budgets. It's easier to understand and people can see it. So that's just the MTSS, where's the general fund?
So page 24 has the general fund. I again break out the technology because of the non-operating school districts. I don't assess them anything for tech, and then there's the 3 district-specific expenses that I can't remove completely, which are broken down in the little yellow highlighted at the bottom. So the top is the 2-year ADM average. Oh, I'm sorry, I got this backwards,
The
I
first one was
apologize.
long-term,
Yeah, I'm used to thinking of, so. MTSS is long-term average daily membership, and it includes all students that are schools, including tuition, because we have to give special ed students to kids that might be going to private schools that we pay tuition on. It's a requirement in the law, so I apologize. That is the long-term ADM, and the difference is the regular ADM average is students in the building. So the general fund is specific to the students in the building, those numbers, a 2-year rolling average, and that's in the first section. Based on those numbers, which are a little different than the MTSS, we come down with the assessments for the general fund budget, then the tech assessment, and then the district specific, again, which is broken down to specific schools, and I have them listed, West River and Windham Central, break down the professional development, West River transportation, there's a section for River Valley and West River, and then the child nutrition program is broken down between Marlboro, River Valley, and West River, as is the technology assessment currently. So then those numbers come together, and I totaled it on the right-hand side, showing Windham, Stratton, West River, River Valley, Marlboro, and Windham Central's part of this general fund assessments budget.
And that's just the general fund.
Yes.
So
The
don't
page
forget,
25 is where those all come together for all the school districts. In years past, they were broken down specifically with the different fee for service and ECSE, but because we have 2 budgets, I am combining them. The one thing you'll see different is that West River will still have after-school programming, and I have a general number that I put in there based on a quick conversation. So you'll see the general fund assessment, this current year's assessment versus what we're proposing, and then the variable amount and the variable percentage in each of the school districts.
And then just to confuse people even more, page 26 has an organizational chart, and we did, because of last year, we had some discussion. There is a list of employees, so you can kind of see where there was a question about who has direct impact on students and not direct impact. Direct contact with students, it's a TAC. And then those that are just, don't have any direct impact or contact with students. So the page 27, 28, 29 has the first grouping is the general fund budget, which is 17 people. And then the second section is the MTSS budget, which is a couple pages.
And these are based on current year earnings, not projected.
So this is where I think we can get those numbers from pretty easily. What is in the general fund budget? So it's been almost 2 hours, hour 45 minutes. So how do we move forward? What do y'all want to do? Go ahead, Dan.
Rich, I want to say I have expressed concern about that $294,000, but, or whatever it was, the 5%, because I agree with Drew that it could be made more precise, but I will not vote against the expense budget tonight based on that if you want to bring it to a vote, Rich.
It's what you all want to do. So, again, we can also, just because we put in the budget doesn't mean we got to spend it. and we can give more direction, or we can ask for more clarification on how it's gonna be broken out. And we can also go into executive session if you wanna go down to, the micro of who's getting what percentage wise. And I do agree with you guys, because we've fought this for years. If you give a percentage, those here make more than those here, but when you give a dollar amount, then they always convert it to a percentage, and then those here complain they didn't get as big a percentage here. It's, I don't know where the balance is. It is probably the worst thing we all do, or the hardest thing we all do.
I guess my point is, rather than have to put this off to another meeting on another night, I will vote for the budget as it is presented, with the understanding that it would be nice to have some clarification on that.
Anybody, Drew?
There's a lot here. And I think the presentation was excellent. I don't know that I have had enough time to understand, again, 30 pages of spreadsheets. So, I mean, I'm not ready to vote for the budget one way or the other. Like, I think when I look at, again, the bottom line, there's a pretty significant increase to the assessment coming to West River, and how that's gonna affect our ability to, put programs forward. Like, I think there needs to be some consideration there. So I'm not ready to vote on the budget based on that.
Anybody else? TV land folks?
What does our timeline look like for the year? I don't want to end up in the same state we ended up in last year, so I want to take consideration where we need to give consideration, but I also want us to all be mindful of the timeline of getting a budget to everything.
I think Marlboro has the first budget vote, right?
Well, Stratton, Windham, and Marlboro are all town meeting day.
Okay, and then West River is between us and.
Yeah, I think they moved it to the first week of April, I think this year.
We're towards
And
the
you
end of
guys will be
April.
at the end of April, yeah.
Okay, cause I mean, it used to always be we had to get it done within a fairly short period of time, mostly for the Leland and Gray budget and West Rivers, but since that's moved, we do have some time that we could have another meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we have a placeholder
Right.
for the Wednesday after break to have another meeting, setting December 3rd, I think it is.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, it's on the agenda, so we have that set as a potential placeholder to do that. I would say, the warning dates for the 3 districts that have to do it for town meeting day, and Marlboro has its own complicating factor going on. You would have to be, I would say, the beginning of February at the absolute latest, that they would need to have their budget adopted with the assessment already cooked in. So,
I think the end of January.
the
we
wiggle
have to
room,
get it done.
yeah, probably end of January. So the middle of January is really like your last ditch really opportunity to do that. And I will just say this for Marlboro, because they have other considerations happening, they may be making other decisions in mid-January, that having that baked in prior to that would be advantageous for them. Is that right, Dan?
That is true, yeah, we can get to that when we get to the district reports, but, we're going to include whatever budget this group puts forward in what we bring before the voters. It will ideally be before the first Tuesday in March.
Well, in fact, the draft that we presented last night has this already baked in.
It's already baked
Right,
in there,
correct.
so we can go to the voters with what we think it's gonna look like, and then it can be, like you say, Rich, it'll be a budget, but, yeah, we'll get to that. Those complicating factors a little bit later.
Right, so I think the point, what I was trying to say from that is that 2 weeks from tonight, the 3rd would be, is that 2 weeks? Yeah.
It is 2 weeks.
That would be, if people need more time and we can get more information, it will help clarify things. Going much beyond that, then you have holidays and, so.
And we also have other districts that gotta be working on their budgets.
Correct,
as well.
and Heidi has, she's got many things to do. I mean, if people need to wait the 2 weeks to have time to review, get some more information from us, I just would like to know if there's more information people need.
We need to know tonight, because we.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we can have another discussion too, but.
Yep.
Okay, so Drew, you set, sir?
Bob's gonna hate me, but that's okay. So what I heard you say was that you're 4 months into looking at, you've already found some efficiencies, and you're likely to find more efficiencies. So if we set the budget now, then means we have to pull down these tax dollars from the public, right? If we can make an assumption that you're going to find those efficiencies and reduce the budget, we will still have a fund balance available. You could always come back to this board and say, hey, we did our best and we couldn't, and we could authorize you to overspend that budget at that time. So would it be a bad thing to give you a target to say, we know that you're working very hard to find us efficiencies. In order to be good fiscal stewards of the public's money, let's just go ahead and assume you're gonna make those. And if you can't, like give you a real goal, right, to make that reduction. If you can't, then we do have a little wiggle room because we have a fund balance that we could use to make up the difference next year. But at least that way we're not pulling tax dollars when we already have a huge increase that we might not need, that's just gonna end up in a fund balance. Does that make sense?
Aren't you kind of doing that when you use the fund balance? Because if we don't need it, that fund balance isn't getting touched.
That's right.
But we're taking tax dollars, so.
You're reducing
Can I-
the tax,
hang on.
I'm sorry.
So how about this, Drew? Then if we were to authorize moving all the fund balance that's left and ask Bob to make efficiencies, then there, hopefully he doesn't spend it. And I think that maybe is kind of where you're headed, is so instead of, Heidi's predicting X number of dollars in the fund balance, $1.2 million, I think, roughly, we're only moving 800. If we were to move $1.2 million, there's nothing for next year unless there is efficiency found. And we're kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit, and we don't have anything to play with in the future, but that's something we could consider, or we could be brought up when we decide to move. So it doesn't affect the budget, it doesn't affect the expense budget, but it does affect how we raise funds. And that's in our purview. That's something we can definitely do, if you want to consider that. Well, no, it's still true.
Okay, yeah, go for it, yeah.
I just like the idea of giving them a target, like, if we authorize, whatever, an additional reduction of $100,000, as you're, we don't know where it is, like, we're not the experts, but we know that this budget's tight. We're asking you to find that through the process you're going through, and we leave that out of next year's budget. There's, like, we've given you a directive, we've given you a goal, and if you absolutely can't make that goal, then we have another method, but at least we've made a very clear public goal that, like, we're trying to be as efficient as possible. You've acknowledged that you think you can be more efficient. So I would like to just go that direction and see if.
So that's when you were thinking that, were you thinking like a combined 100 between the two and find it wherever you find it kind of thing?
Right, like, we acknowledge, like, you've, and it may be that you reduce a 0.2 FTE over here that you found efficiency for, and, a 0.1 over here, but we give you that as a target, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've asked us for all
people, you have two different budgets, so which, you have to be able to identify what the where the target's coming from.
Can I also make a point? One of the things that I'm concerned about is, because we're talking down the road, so do I go in and say, okay, special ed teachers, I'm removing 0.5, and then everybody's concerned that they're losing their job?
Hang on a second. So let me just clarify something. We're not, what Drew's saying is we would give, when we go to vote on a budget, an expense budget, we don't vote on and say that we're gonna spend $100 here and 300. We vote a bottom line budget. So what Drew's saying is by making a target, we can make a motion to vote a budget of $150, and then it can be amended to reduce that by $15 to $135. That, if we vote that, then you folks need to figure out a budget that is $135. If you take $1 off each line, and however you do it, that is, I think that's where we're.
Yes, I just have
is
to
that
make
where
the
you're
numbers
going?
work.
Now, the bottom line is, and then, yes, the administration's gonna have to look at where to go, if that's something that the board decides to do.
Okay.
Hang on, are you?
I'm just
Yeah.
raising my hand, that's
Okay,
all,
no,
so I'm in the
okay.
queue.
Are you good then? Okay, so I think you were next in the queue. I just don't wanna lose track of them, cause I'm
No,
looking
absolutely
here.
not, I
So,
was
go ahead.
only raising my hand to get in the queue.
Yes, no, go ahead.
So
Sorry.
I just want, so for clarification, I understand what this conversation is, but in the past, we've done this many times by saying, I make a motion to reduce the budget by $100,000 and asking, the administration to come back to us. I feel like this is kind of sugarcoating that same motion. And I would appreciate that we just say it right up front. I mean, we have to decide whether we think this is a reasonable budget based on the numbers and the feedback we've been given tonight. Whether we can support the budget as it is, or whether we're going to support a budget that's reduced by, I think you said 100.
Yeah, I just picked a
Whatever,
number.
maybe you didn't have, because you didn't make a motion. I'm not putting words in your mouth. But I just want to be very clear, when we make a decision to vote on whether we're going this direction, we're not actually asking them to, oh, please go back and do. We're saying, we want 100,000 less, so come back to us with a different budget. I don't want to leave any gray area with our administration, or with us, so that we know what we're voting on. That's all I'm trying to be really clear about.
Okay, are you set, boss? Anybody else over in live, go, and then we'll get to.
I just wanted to say, $100,000 is such a tiny portion of this. I feel like it's an empty gesture. I guess I would say that. I feel like it's an expression of lack of confidence in the people who put this budget together, independent of the fact that it's not going to save any taxpayers even a penny, honestly, in their tax rates, $100,000.
Okay. I'm sorry, Melissa and Kate, I've been looking this way. Did either one of you have any comments?
I think my big focus is that we ensure that we have what we need to meet student needs across the SU. And if we have any other, we are facing really unprecedented times with all the lack of federal supports, shall we say, and rising taxes. So whatever we can do to really shore this up and make it the best number we possibly can for the districts would be amazing. But I want to make sure that we really keep the focus on taking care of the students within the district, because I don't want us to end up in a place where we aren't taking care of the kids, and then we end up in a place where we have to spend more money down the road because we didn't give the kids they needed at a young supports they needed at a younger age. Like Rich's example of the Dover program, when they had some really good supports at the younger ages.
Thank you, Kate. Melissa?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's where we're at, I think. We've hammered out, we've discussed things, we've looked at the numbers, the presentation. If somebody would like to make a motion, we usually do it as separate motions to do the, we used to be the superintendents, we'll do the general fund budget. If somebody would like to make a motion, it would be for an amount. And then we can have a vote or amendments, and then if we wanted to do, the MTSS budget too. So we have just two budgets this year. Would anybody like to make a motion on a budget? Don't all speak at once. If there are no motions,
I am more than happy to make I don't have a number, I'm trying to find numbers.
Oh,
I'm
oh.
more than happy.
I
And
would-
before, you can give me the number and I'm, of what our proposed is here tonight.
so let's
but
start
let
with
me
the
ju-
superintendents, go ahead.
Yeah, but let me just say, I'm gonna do this based on my
knowledge that our administration has done due diligence on presenting a budget that meets, as Kate just said, student needs and in a very difficult time. And because I'm waiting for their numbers, I'm gonna give this speech, I'm gonna give it after the motion. And at the same time, I'm gonna make a motion for that amount without the reduction, is what I'm coming up to. Because I also trust that our administration has heard this conversation tonight, and it's not the first time we've had it. I mean, we certainly have had it before. And we are absolutely gonna have it again. That if there are savings to be found, I think, first of all, based on this budget, they have found them, but if there are further savings to be found, they will find them. And so I'm gonna make a motion to approve a budget of what is it?
3 million.
3,000,000, is it 270?
Yep.
343 for the general fund budget.
So
I'll
we
do that separate.
Yeah, we have a motion for the general fund of $3,270,343. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so Dwight seconded the motion. So now we get discussion. So you get
I
first
did- I
dibs
did.
and you kind of did it ahead of time.
Sorry, I
Dwight
sort of
is
did it.
making a second. Do you have any comments? Is there anything you'd like to say?
No, I appreciate the discussion. I think everyone here is focused on the same things, and I trust in the administration and what they have done, and I think I can support this.
Okay. TV Land, any comments? No? Two shaking heads. Drew, I know you got something.
Yeah, I can't support the motion because I still have open questions that were not answered about the pay increases. So, but certainly if the board wants to vote it through tonight, it's a lot of information to be thrown in front of you in an hour and then asked to, request that the public, increase their contribution by 20%. So for me, it's too much for tonight, so my vote will be no because I don't think it's appropriate to kind of move forward in this fashion.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing no other discussion. All those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Thank you.
That's you, Drew.
Okay, because it's on a unanimous vote and we do have.
I was waiting to hear them vote.
Oh, they
Wait,
did.
their hands.
Oh, I was
Oh, I
waiting for.
heard them. So I'm gonna do a roll call vote. So Meredith,
Ready?
are you ready? Is she still there?
Meredith is, she's down at the bottom. She's muted.
Okay, so I'll keep track. So I'm gonna just go through my list here. Al,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Drew,
No.
Kate,
Aye.
Dwight,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
It appears to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ayes, 1 nay, and the chair will go with the majority. So it's the motion carries for the general fund.
Can I just,
Yep.
it's okay if I say something right now? I made the motion, but I also wanted you to know, and want the administration to know that the expectation was still that we were gonna get that information. I didn't want,
Yes.
I mean, I totally understand your perspective. I also agree that we need that breakdown and expect it. I just wanted that stated. No, just yours.
Okay. So we have a general fund budget, we have an MTSS budget that is proposed to be $9,223,934. Somebody like to make motion to that?
I'll be happy to.
Okay, so Joe, you're making a motion to approve the MTSS budget
Yes.
of $9,023,934. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
I'll second. Yeah,
I'll give it to you.
okay.
Okay, Al seconds the motion. Okay, discussion, Joe, you got anything you wanna say?
Not really. I trust the presentation has been excellent. I think we do need some clarification, and I also really trust that, if you found some, I had a really hard time with the target thing. I get it, and I think that can be something in the backs of your minds, but I don't think there's any way to impose it that makes any sense. And I trust that you may find twice what we're asking you to find. You may find nothing, but I know you're looking, and that's the reason I'll support this, and it's because what our kids need.
Okay. Or Alan, you were saying.
No, well said, Joe. I agree. I support the administration, and you will, if you find something, you will apply it, and yeah, thank you.
TV Land, you guys all good?
All good. All good.
Thumbs up. Dwight, I'm sorry, Drew.
Similar comments to the last budget. I think that taking a little bit more time and finding those efficiencies now, or giving the administration a target to find those efficiencies now, so that we don't ask the public, who already has a hefty tax burden, for more money than we need to, would have been a more prudent approach. So I can't support the motion.
Dan, Dwight, Emily? You guys all set to vote then? Okay, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of approving an MTSS budget of $9,023,934, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, I'm gonna, just because it's not unanimous and we are hybrid, I'm gonna run through again, I'm gonna go backwards. Melissa?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Drew?
Nay.
Emily?
Yeah,
Joe?
Aye.
And Al?
Aye.
Okay, appears to be the same 7 ayes, 1 nay, and the chair will go with the majority. So your MTSS budget is passed. So the other thing we need to talk about, because I brought it up that we would have a discussion and vote on that. We do have on page, excuse me, and I'm getting a little lost here. On page 22, we discussed, there appears to that there's gonna be about $1,190,116.98 in total fund balance. So the recommendation was to move 800,000, or about 2/3, to offset expenses. And I think there was some discussion, and we can move more or less. What would you all like to see put in there for a number? Would somebody like to make a motion on how much we move from the fund balance, projected fund balance, towards, we can do a dollar amount, or we can do a percentage, however y'all wanna go.
I'll make a motion that we move 800,000 from fund balance to reducing the tax impact.
Okay, Dan, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Let me just, before we get there,
Okay, yeah.
so there's also 258,000 that there will probably be in fee for service too. So again, I'm a little confused.
Because it's a separate fund.
Right.
Now we're combining funds.
Right, but the fee for service moved into the general fund.
I think I need a
Superintendent.
motion.
Okay. Can we backtrack? If you look on page 22, there's they're projecting an unaudited amount at the end of the year of $258,109.05. I don't know what that number's gonna be exactly. So would somebody like to make a motion that any fund balance in the fee for service at the end of the year be moved into the general fund, because that's where we're moving those items.
So moved.
Okay, so Emily moved that any fund balance at the end of FY '26 be moved into the general fund balance. Do I have a second to that motion?
Kate seconds.
Okay, I have a second from Kate. Is there any discussion yet first?
No, but this makes absolute sense, and I appreciate the clarification.
Kate, you good?
I'm good.
Drew, Al, good. Okay, you all ready to vote?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, that's why I pointed to you
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah, it just came up.
Okay.
Have we been budgeting for interest off these accounts over the last few years? And what is the impact of the loss of interest going to be if we spend on all the fund balance?
So can you hold that question? Because I think that would be more apt for the next
The next
Okay,
question.
next
Yeah.
motion, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. Okay, so I have one quick question, and I don't wanna confuse it, but when you do a fee for service, schools are contributing money. If there's I just wanna clarify, cause I believe I know the answer, but I think it's important. This isn't actually money that the schools put in that wasn't used. So like, if West River bought into, or say Marlboro bought into the gym teacher, but you didn't hire the gym teacher, and they wound up paying it, that has already been refunded to Marlboro.
The district.
This is for the general fund stuff, the fee for service items that was everybody contributed to.
This is for the fee for service, which involves specific things, mostly, so they were assessed portions of expenses that impacted their schools. If they didn't have the gym teacher, they didn't pay for the gym teacher, correct? Probably a part of this is professional development that hasn't gotten used over the years. I would say that's probably a portion of this. There's also probably some health insurance or this and that might have been not used completely for specific individuals. So it would be difficult to figure out exactly how much, I mean,
Right.
yeah.
So, but I just want,
If there was something we only assessed the schools that were using something that was currently in fee for service, each year, so they got what they paid for in that sense.
I just wanna be clear so
Yes.
that everybody
Yes,
doesn't feel
I
like they're
understand.
shortchanged.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that? Does that bring up any other concerns or thoughts? Uncle, you guys all good? Drew? Okay, if you're all ready to vote, the motion is to move any fund balance at the end of FY '26 and the FFS fee for service budget into the general fund budget. All those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. It appears to be unanimous decision, in the affirmative. It is, so that motion, we don't need to do a roll call. Okay, the next item would be then, how much do you want to move over? So Drew, I think your question is appropriate now, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the question was about interest and how we've been using that and does it affect our budget, and has that already been taken into consideration?
No, not exactly, but I have been cautious because I've been moving funds into treasury bills, which have been really good interest rates, but I am cautious when I budget for that each year. I have definitely increased it because in the past, we've only budgeted revenue for about 10,000 from interest, and for instance, for fiscal year 25, I think we made close to 90,000. So going forward, I have budgeted 50,000. I think we're still gonna see, as these funds get used and assessments come in and come out, I do short-term treasury bills, so I'm trying to make what I can for short-term, which is where the better interest rates are. So you're still gonna do okay, for at least the portion of the year where the assessments are coming in. You're still gonna have interest, but not 90,000, not in the end, as you use it. So a year from now, it will be a different story.
You all set? Okay. Is there anybody who'd like to make a motion on how much you would like to move from a projected $1.2 million fund balance?
4 now.
Pardon, 4
It's
million?
it's 1.4 now.
4.
Right, because we added that 200.
That's in the general fund that you just added it to.
Yeah, but we're talking, we're just doing moving money for the MTSS. We're taking MTSS fund balance to offset that. The other one, we can go to that one next, but this
Okay.
was the big one. And this was the one that she projected a lot, using 800 in her numbers. So we need a number. So if somebody'd like to make that, go ahead, Dan.
I will make a motion that we move $800,000 from the MTSS fund balance to reduce tax impact for the coming year.
So we have a motion to move 800,000 from projected fund balance of MTSS to offset revenue, offset tax requirements. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Emily seconds the motion. So, discussion, Dan, you made the motion.
Yeah, I think that, I think it would be imprudent to take more than that out of there. As you point out, Heidi, we never know exactly where we're gonna come into at the end of the year. And if we do end up overspending our budget and having to borrow money, that's gonna cost us more money than we might conceivably save by swapping more of that out now. So I like that. I like trying to preserve something, some cash in the bank at the end of the year.
Okay.
And I'll just say, agree with what Dan said and add that I really do believe in rainy day funds, which is what I call these, because the state budget's for those two and I'm very familiar, that's what we call them. But I'm also really mindful of taxpayers and their costs too. So holding larger amounts than that are also not great. So this is a good compromise. I second the motion.
Good.
Al, Drew, all set? Melissa or Kate?
Oh, good.
Okay.
All set.
So I agree, I'm glad we're not moving at all, so there is a little bit, and it'll also make, as Drew pointed out, not a lot, but it does add some interest, so it seems like a good compromise, and also, who knows what's gonna happen next year? It could be worse when we're sitting here a year from now, so I think that's a very prudent number, Dan. If there's no more discussion, is everybody ready to vote? If y'all are, all those in favor of the 800,000 from projected fund balance into the MPSS to offset taxes needed, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Appears to be unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is. So now we moved 258 from FFS. You were projecting 426 in there, so you've got about
675 maybe?
675. Everybody agree with that? Does that make sense to everybody? On page 22. You didn't give us a recommendation to offset the superintendent's
I
budget.
didn't, but I do think since there was an approval to move the FFS, that I would like to suggest we use 200,000.
Okay. Discussion, comments, would somebody like to make a motion?
Let me just clarify this, Heidi. So if we're adding the 258 to the 426, is that right? So we're coming up with, what'd you say,
675,
675.
680, yeah.
Could we go 300,000 on that? and still,
The board, I mean, I feel comfortable with that, yep.
Go ahead, Al, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So on page 24, there is an assumption for no use of fund balance.
There's
Correct.
no, right, that is correct, there is
Got it.
nothing.
Okay.
So that would reduce the assessments on page 24.
Got it.
the 800 has been included, but not the
Yes,
300 or
that is
whatever.
correct,
Got the
that
two.
is correct.
Well, yeah.
They were discussing.
And then as well on 25?
On 25, yes, right,
Okay.
those numbers will fall into that, yes.
I will make the motion that we move $300,000 from the general fund balance to be used to offset taxes.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
Sure.
Joe seconds the motion to move 300,000 of general fund, fund balance, projected ending fund balance, to help offset taxes. Dan, any comments? Joe?
Yep. As long as the administration's comfortable with it.
You good, Dwight? Good. Kate or Melissa, any comments?
No, good.
Okay, sounds like a good number. It's a little under half, so it'll still leave us a little bit to prevent us if something really dramatic happens in MTSS or anywhere else, without having to borrow, so there's no other discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed? Appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. So I think to just summarize everything, we need to discuss the salary line items and the increases, because we wanna look at that.
Yep.
We need to have the amounts fixed, especially with the 300, that's gonna change that. And can you get that out to everybody, you think, by the end of the week?
Oh, sure, I'll do it tomorrow.
Okay. I think that's good. Are we good on budget? Yeah, first item. Now I lost my agenda.
Yeah, good. That's it for new business.
Okay, we do have old business. We have to adopt a couple policies. We have D8, selection of library materials, and F5, behavior threat assessment teams. I believe at the Oktoberfest, we did approve them to be
I
worn.
love how you keep working on it in the lexicon, that's good.
Well, you told me you wanted me
I know.
to, you owe me big bucks for that.
It's a thing.
So, they have been posted,
Yep.
I believe they've been on the websites. Is there anybody who'd like to make a motion to adopt those two policies? We could probably do them both at the same time.
I will
So
make that
moved.
motion. Oh, there we go.
Kate, thank you. Kate moved to adopt D8, selection of library materials, and F5, behavior threat assessment on teams. Dan?
Second it.
Dan seconded it. Discussion? Guys good over there?
Yeah.
Guys are good. There's no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Stragglers. Any opposed? Hearing none. Appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is. Look at that. District updates. Drew, you want to do West River?
I'm gonna pass over to Al.
You are.
Yep.
Passing the buck.
You were there.
Chaired the last meeting.
Well, you were there.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, you're the chair.
Lots of stuff going on in West River, as far as, student activities and whatnot. Most recently, had some staff leave, and I hear maybe staff replaced, so that's exciting.
2 thumbs up, Drew.
2 thumbs up, right?
You got it right.
They
Got it
did,
right.
they got it right, they got it really right,
We
so.
had a coup, actually, I might say, that the AOE's, or the state's requirement to force state employees to come in person
Yeah.
led us
I know
to
what you're
Tammy
talking
Bates
about.
Yes,
re-entering
we know what you're talking about.
Yep.
re-entering the workforce for West River as a 4th grade teacher. So
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm bummed.
Yeah,
That's
he's looking
okay.
for a pre-K director, but that's not our problem.
Not our problem, as long as it's somebody else's problem, right? So,
What happened to the person was there?
She resigned.
so other than that, like lots of good things going on. Anybody that didn't see the performances, Aladdin was amazing. Concert last night was great. So, so we're I think a good school year so far. Unless somebody else has something exciting they want to add.
Yeah, that was a professional concert last night. It was
What
incredible.
was it,
It was the
band
band,
concert?
choir, choral. Yeah, so good.
I will have everybody know that Al had to leave the meeting early to make sure he came to Aladdin, so he said it was really worth it.
Aladdin was great. They did an amazing job.
Yeah. Yeah, we're small but mighty. And,
I'll tell you, so the amount of kids that were in the performance, youngest being 4th grade, I think.
Yeah.
So to see the 4th graders performing, with the seniors,
The Commoners did a nice write-up about it.
it was really cool to see the kids and the way that, the older and the younger kids work together. Yeah.
Alumni coming back and the whole.
Yeah, like I said, the alumni
Yeah.
coming back to help direct. It really is like, it's our story. Like, that's what makes this school so special and, this area so special. Like, and it was all on stage. It was really cool.
Well said, Drew.
That's great.
So I'd just like to make one comment. Isn't it fun to talk about that versus budgets and the lack of resources coming from the federal government and the state? And Drew, it's the first time I've seen you smile tonight, so. Good job. Go ahead, Marlboro.
So our situation is tougher than anybody else by a long shot, because we met with Bob and Heidi last night because we have asked the administration to come up with 2 proposals for the coming year, one of which would be to not provide pre-K, K, or grade 1, because we basically don't have enough kids there to even begin to rationalize those positions. And change the structure of the school to operating grade 2 through 8, or become a non-operating school at the end of this coming year. So so we've asked a lawyer to help us figure out what the logistics of that is, what has to be done to make that happen, in order that we maintain some of the vibrancy that you're talking about, which is what our principal Dana does all day long, which is just to say, we still got kids coming to school. We still need them to feel, they need to know that we are here for them no matter where we're going. That's why we would like to not wait till March to have the first of the votes. But if we could come up with a way to make a decision about which of those 2 options we're going to put before the voters, and have that happen as quickly in January as we possibly could, then our staff would know. We don't know which way we'll go yet. We're working with the administration, looking at the budgets, looking at the comparisons of the tax impact and the educational impact on the kids. But if we could have that vote a month or more earlier than the March meeting, it will mean that our staff kind of knows. If we put something on the ballot and it fails, then we'll go the other way. It'll still be way late into the spring. So I'd like to think we would be putting on the ballot the item that would have the most support from the community, whichever one it turns out to be, so that we don't then have a second vote or a recall on the first vote or whatever. So you can see the issues of trying to keep your head above water is what's going to happen as far as what's happening. Not having staff say, well, my job's either terminating at the end of this year or next year, so I'm going to start looking for the best job I can find, and pretty soon they'll be working for Windham Central over there. So yeah, or they'll go to. But we don't do a lot of smiling over there, except when the kids are around, and they bless them all. Everybody who works in the school is completely engaged and enthusiastic, but but the decisions that we will have to be making are gonna be tough, and I think it's, it may be, we look at other schools that have just had really much harder situations, and I guess I will say maybe personally, but I think a lot of people in Marlboro feel this way, that we feel lucky that we're still an independent district because we will be making this decision as a community rather than as part of a larger district which had it forced upon us somehow. So I don't know, that's kind of where we are.
A comment, when my first term as chairman of Windham Central, I went over to Marlboro, and you'll remember this because we voted on it, and I presented a plaque to Dan on behalf of Windham Central for 20 some odd years, I forget how many, of service to Windham Central. And then Dan, I talked to him every now and then, I pushed Dan to try to get on the State Board of Ed, and he didn't do it, thank God for him. And then when we looked at Act 46, you came back to the board to help, and you've had your grandchildren going there. I don't think any great grandchildren. And he's bled for Marlboro, and Dan, I know this has got to be killing you and eating you up, and the family, and you guys in Marlboro have had a couple tough things. Marlboro College closing, that had been around forever, and I don't envy you, and I'm glad I'm not in your position, and I wish you the best, and anything Windham Central can do to support you. I know the administration's helping you a lot, but as board members, it's surprising. Marlboro used to be a huge building, a lot of students, and Drew, we were just talking about 100 less, and all of us are suffering that, and we may all be facing that in the next few years. So,
well, I appreciate it, Rich. Yeah, thanks for that. I will say absolutely that Bob and Heidi have been 100%, and that's given the fact that they have all of, WCSU to deal with and all the other districts as well, but you guys have really, made it possible for us to navigate this. Just an anecdote, Rich, is that the new building that is our school, when they shut down the little one-room schools that my older siblings went to, I was the first kid to go into that school in 1955, and now will be probably the person responsible for shutting it down. So that's what is that, 70 years later, right? Yeah. Numbers.
Just to add, we thank you for your kind words. I would also say that having seen this happen as well in other places, that the grace that your board is dealing with this, with an incredibly challenging situation. We'll see what the community meeting is like tomorrow night. Hopefully it's friendly, but people have been very, very graceful with each other, and it's been classy, and it's just been an honor to kind of participate in that. So I know it's hard.
So Drew will be happy. You won't have to park an ambulance outside to clean up the aftermath.
Yeah, might have to. You never know. Right. We won't call ahead of time. It'll be an emergency call.
No problem. We got you.
You got you. Okay.
They got everybody. So Dan, I don't need to repeat what everybody said, but what you're going through in Marlboro, which has been really challenging, I'm gonna say not just for your community either, because it really has an impact on every one of us who live in rural areas. It is what is in the front of my mind constantly as I'm thinking about what next steps the state can take. And it is one of the reasons, and a strong part of why I didn't support the bill that we're dealing with right now, because I don't think we've approached this challenge that we're all facing in one way or another. And I'm pretty familiar with this too, because, look at Jamaica. We're still wishing that things could be different there. Look at Windham. I mean, we've been, it's not like this is new, and I've shared this specifically, districts that we represent here with Zoe Saunders, our secretary, saying that the drive to consolidate in rural areas the small schools that are, people make fun of the thing when everybody says the heart of our communities, but there is a reality to it that isn't just about the kids, although that's always first, but it is about the vibrancy of our rural communities. And we deal with a lot of other challenges outside of our loss of our schools. And that I think there's a better way for us to approach the challenges that we're facing, and I'm gonna keep fighting for other ways. I wish it was in time for Windham and Jamaica and Marlboro and all the others who are in the queue, because there's a lot of them. And I just hope we can do better, and I really feel for you and your community and your kids.
Well, just the only response to that, thanks Emily, is just that once again, similar to Act 46, what we're doing now is really not a response to Act 73.
I get it.
And in a way, I'm really glad about that too. I'm proud to be able to say the community's dealing with its own issues without what's coming down from the state forcing that to happen. And I just think it's going to be better this way. And so, but we also appreciate that you will be on House Ed in about a month, a couple months. So thanks for your voice.
Well, I appreciate, I'm just gonna say one more thing. I appreciate you saying that, and I've heard that from Marlboro right from the beginning. But the fact is, what I'm trying to refer to isn't just Act 73 either. I mean, when we stepped into Act 46 back in 2013, 12 really, because it was prior to that, we had decisions that we had other decisions we could have made to step forward. I think 2 years ago when we passed the Commission on the Future of Public Education, that may have, a few years ago, given us other options for communities like yours. No, whether it would change your trajectory, I don't know. Whether it would have changed otherwise, I don't know. But I'm saying it's not just Act 73, but is this time now for us to make the changes we need to make to be able to support our rural communities around this state? Because that's who I represent, only rural communities, and it's really important to me. So I don't think, I agree with you, and there's this other piece. It's been going on a long time.
Anyway, that's Marlboro in a nutshell.
Yeah, big nutshell.
What if I had said no?
Don't do that.
Okay. Melissa, Stratton.
Yes, Stratton's been kind of busy. We're trying to keep ourselves aligned with where a majority of our students go, which is in Manchester. We've thought about revisiting this. I think we did it back during Act 46 about thinking of merging with Windham. So that's one topic we're sort of throwing around. We're also thinking about trying to switch supervisory unions and go to BRSU because that's where a majority of our kids are. We've spoken to Sean Toohey, who is in Pietro's office, and he was giving us some advice on next steps and how to proceed if we wanted to switch supervisory unions, or what we would do if we went to merge with Windham. And he mentioned that getting the BRSU's approval and Windham Central's approval if everyone was on the same page about us switching supervisory unions, that would be helpful for the AOE to make a decision. So we're just sort of trying to get all of our ducks in a row, figure out what our next course of action will be, and then eventually present it to the town, and so they can make a vote. If we were to choose to switch supervisory unions, we would need the support of the WCSU, and if you guys would support that.
Yeah,
That's kind of where we're at.
so that would be definitely a discussion in the future. But Melissa, that reminds me, and you'll remember, and Emily will remember, when I first started attending Windham Central meetings as a Dover rep, we had a school in Brookline, we had a school in Jamaica, we had a school in Windham, we had a school in Windham that was all part of WCSU. And, there's half the schools now, if you think about it. And, it's not, I understand why Brookline closed. I understand, why Windham wanted to move over and close. And Dan, if you remember, that was one of my first meetings. We had that discussion whether we would support Windham So it's, you know, it's, the landscape's always changing, and I know it's not easy, so we wish you the best of luck, but I still shudder when Stratton's not gonna be with us anymore, because we'll miss you and we'll miss Allison, and, you know, you guys have been good. Winhall had been a really good ally, and you know, some really good, they were very active. Same with Windham, had been very active. We always had their 3 board members, so it's tough. Hey,
Well, thank you. I enjoy being on this board. It's a huge learning experience, but I'm enjoying it, and yeah, I appreciate that.
thank you. Hey, Kate, you wanna do River Valley?
Yeah, I can talk about what's been going on with River Valleys. You know, we've been watching what's going on with Marlboro and thinking about them, and, you know, watching that. And Emily, thank you for looking for other ways to support our communities in these rural areas, because it's not easy to live here. And we do make that choice, and we want to make sure that we do right by our children as we stay here and do all those things. So in River Valleys, we've been doing some different things with the swap to the EL curriculum. We've been working through what that means for the IB program. So we've been exploring that. We've been surveying community members and kind of talking about what that looks like and feels like, and what is the right choice for that. But we really want to make sure it's a community consensus and not just something that the board is thinking about. We want to make sure that the community is engaged with that process and that we go for that. The other things is that the students are busy. They had a couple of, I think, did both schools have the field trip over to Leland and Gray for the play?
Just Wardsboro, I believe.
Yeah, just Wardsboro.
Just Wardsboro. So yeah, so half of our kids got to go and see that, and I know that was very much enjoyed. Both schools are gearing up for winter sports and being part of that Vermont experience, so we're really looking forward to that. Anything else, Dwight or Rich? Dwight's been really big on keeping us super informed in what's happening with Act 73, and we've appreciated having his knowledge, because I know it's not easy to learn about.
Thanks,
Well,
Kate.
hang on. Kate, and then stormwater, you guys voted to get a grant for the
Oh, the
stormwater.
stormwaters, right.
We have spent
I forgot, I noticed something.
6 hours on stormwater.
Our big thing's been stormwater.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate. I know you and Dwight were and somebody else, who was the third person for the Act 73 subgroup for Windham Central?
Oh, right.
Who was it?
Melissa?
I don't know.
Yes, it was
Melissa.
Yeah.
Right.
So
We
anyways,
didn't formally meet.
yeah, so Dwight, go ahead. Just
Well,
if you
yeah,
wanna.
I mean, I'd love to give an update, but I really, well, with Emily on the spot, but I'd really like to hear her opinion, because what ended up happening at the last meeting was, I would think, surprising, maybe interesting, I'm not sure what the right word is, but I wanted to know if that's unprecedented, you know, to what was asked of the task force and what they came up with, which I appreciate from personal. I thought that was very bold and necessary, and I thought it was a good move. But I was just curious, from you, is that something that's common in Montpelier, that to not even, you know, not really kind of change gears like in a way that they did, and come back with something that was just say we don't agree with this and we want to do something different?
I'm gonna answer that sort of in a different way. I actually don't think they did veer as much as it's being implied.
Okay.
You know, I think a lot of people had a vision of maps, and I think the legislation made them feel like there was some flexibility. The feedback I'm getting, and I'm just speaking anecdotally, it has been positive, that they're glad that this is the direction that this task force has gone. I do know there's some people who are really upset and think that they haven't done their due diligence. I think that there's a different opinion about that.
Okay.
But I will say that, you know, task force, you don't control those once you set them in place. So when going back to your first question,
Yeah.
sometimes things do shift and like timelines constantly shifting, right? You know, we're supposed to get a report by something, sometimes it's a whole year later before we get one. So it is absolutely not unprecedented for
Okay,
things to
okay.
change after we pass legislation and we turn work over to, you know, other subcommittees or task forces or things like that. So.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, I would get positive feedback from what they did, you know.
And, you know, if I can just add in a little bit to that, why is, I think one of the important things was recognition that it was an impossible task in the amount of time that was given.
Absolutely.
As is, I mean, even the Commission on the Future of Education is a 2-year time span,
Right.
of which half is now done and they're keeping on going. But the thing that was unprecedented from my perspective is that this happened and the timeline was so short that by, you know, less than a year later, they were supposed to come up with solutions to all these problems and then throw it back to Emily and the legislature to try to figure it out. I really hope that everybody will take a deep breath in January and just say, okay, let's not do anything precipitous like what we've been doing so far.
Can I just add to that, because Dan Fraga, if you don't mind, just quickly.
No.
It's just really important to note that in that very short timeline, I mentioned this earlier, but an amazing amount of work did get done. And there's a foundation now that we didn't have when we adjourned in June to take next steps. I don't want that to be lost. I think it's really important that we've learned a huge amount, and we're going to have to spend the first few weeks plus assessing that report coming out of that task force. That's going to take time because there's so much.
Is that report that is what they're gonna base it on, Holcomb, the other two?
It's Badams and
Yeah.
who's the other one? I can't remember.
Rebecca.
Janice.
Oh, yeah, it's Pagenis, yeah,
Yeah.
that was theirs essentially, with Rebecca, I think, but,
When I read that, I mean, it blew me away.
it sort of combined two, options, is what it did. And that was the one that was voted in favor of in the last meeting, and we'll see what happens tomorrow.
I think you sent that out to the River Valley Board, right?
Yeah.
That one report.
Yeah.
If you've got,
To the SU board too.
yeah, I mean, I think whatever came out of that last Act 78, because they have one more meeting, right? Where they
Tomorrow, yeah.
Tomorrow's the meeting, and I think there'll be an updated version of that.
Yeah, but why don't we
probably.
wait till
after that?
I would assume there's.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, at the time, it seemed to me like this is, but then when you have time to reflect, maybe that's what those 2 weeks are for. You realize that's probably the only thing that they could have done because it was so quick. And you look back on it, but at the time, it seemed like, wow, they're not doing what they're asked. But then when you think about it, I think that was the only thing they could do, right? I mean, it was just too much, too quick, and too big. And so it was interesting to follow along, but now it's in your court after tomorrow, so good luck.
We still need to pay attention though, because things can change,
Yeah,
so.
that's right.
Call
I
Emily.
mean, I think as the legislature moves forward.
Right.
Yeah.
It was interesting, it still is, and I guess it always will be.
So I'm chairing,
Your job isn't done.
I'm chairing a committee in the state to look at debt if
Yeah.
they were to combine people. And it's the same thing, the charge was to give a recommendation, and we're looking and saying, how can you give a recommendation when you don't have a budget? I mean, you don't know what it's gonna look like.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't know what, how much it is and who's
Yeah.
getting it. So we're gonna do something very similar. We're gonna give a framework probably, and we have a meeting tomorrow on that. But everybody really we need to really pay attention, and we need to keep on this. And we need to see how things, because I mean, Stratton moving would have an impact for that. Marlboro closing their building would have an impact. And the one thing I really got out of that report was the education deserts, the deserts we're creating by, with Jamaica closing, between Wardsboro and Townsend and Windham closing, there's this huge no education facilities and so.
Rich, did you say on debt?
Yeah, our committee is looking at, our group is looking at, if we were to combine, what happens to the debt So if there was like 3 districts and they all had,
Mhm.
one of them had debt and the other 2 didn't, how does that? And in Act 46, since it was voluntary, you know, that was part of your articles of agreement, but they were looking for, what to do with that debt and who takes it.
Not the surplus one.
Not, yeah.
Yes, the surplus line of debt.
That goes back to the state, no.
Just so you know, there was a big sigh of relief from some people outside of the area, and this is not against their proposal, but when that, CTE Center bond vote failed, some people around the state were like, whew, because that was a pretty big debt that might have been absorbed by a larger, so I'm not to say, this is not to disparage their proposal, because it was a great one, and I've been to that center, and that'd be great to have wonderful CTE centers all over the state. But Colchester did also pass just recently a pretty significant bond too. So these are really big deals right now, and I appreciate that the state board is working on.
Well, it's not the state board, it's a subgroup.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
I appreciate that somebody's looking into it, because we need to be looking into it, because there is uneven debt all over the place around the state, and we have to know what to do.
What it bought, and
Right.
what it is, and.
Right,
Cause,
exactly.
cause debt isn't bad either, because if a school just, if they have a brand new school, and you can bring 4 or 5 other districts
Right.
in that are in really serious need of a building, you know, maybe that's a good thing, cause you know what the debt is. It's actually a
Construction
committee
aid.
set up
Yeah.
by,
Also,
Put construction aid right in
well,
with
that's
that.
our
That's
next,
right.
that's
That's
our,
right.
that's our next step,
Yeah.
after we get this
school
settled.
construction aid,
We
this
have a
will impact.
deadline.
Yeah.
And the state board has a seat, and I was appointed.
You were appointed by the state board to this.
To represent this group.
Well, that's good.
Okay,
Great,
so,
thanks.
I got 2 other real quick things. Can somebody make a motion to approve the minutes of the 10/22/2025 Oktoberfest?
So moved.
Second.
I'll move, Joe, second, is there any discussion? Bob's not paying attention, so he's okay. All those in favor say Bob.
What do you want?
Appears to be unanimous decision in the affirmative.
I can go home now?
No. But I'm gonna get you out of here before 10.
4:10, great.
Okay, so our next
Sleep
meeting,
my office
we had put a December 3rd, 2025, sleep in your car, it's easier. December 3rd, 2025 meeting date, but I don't think we need that now. January 21st, we had was our next scheduled meeting, so why don't we hold that? And then our last motion is one that we need a motion in a second, it's not debatable, and we just go right to a vote.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, do I have a second?
She's very good at that.
Motion to adjourn, second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Everybody opposed say nay. Appears to be unanimous decision in the affirmative, we're out of here before 10, sorry folks, but a lot of good discussion tonight, I appreciate it, and people done well.
Yeah.